We're ready?
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, at 6 o'clock on Tuesday, April 15th, I call a meeting to order. Stand up, get a roll call, please.
Counselor Funderburk. Counselor Wheeler. Give me a minute.
Here.
Thank you. Counselor McLean.
Here.
Counselor Duffloff.
Here.
Counselor Katie McMillan. Counselor Dennis McMillan.
Here.
Mayor Sype.
Please rise for the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. This time, we're looking for any questions on the agenda from council at this time. No further questions, we're looking for a motion to approve the agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion, we approve the agenda as presented.
Thank you. Give me a second for motion, please.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you for your second. Can I get a roll call, please? Councilmember Swap,
Aye.
Councilmember Dennisville,
Aye.
Councilmember Ashley Wheeler,
Aye.
Councilmember Bruce McLean.
Aye.
Thank you. Moving on now to the city manager's report, Dave. Anything to add?
No.
No report this evening. I think, moving on to the consent agenda. I will, make a quick comment to you about the, minutes for April 1st and March 18th. I noticed that there wasn't a vote count, the yeas or the nays for it carried. Is that sufficient in the current ordinances? You know?
As far as we know, yes, the vote count is usually 4-0, and I believe that was noted on there.
Okay.
We can do some research and ensure that we're giving accurate information, Mayor Sype.
I was just gonna say, we need to, each individual's vote needs to be recorded, but it can be recorded as a group. So if it's recorded 4-0, like, so if you, on the attendance, you say, here's the 4 people that are here, and it passes 4-0, then we've recorded each 4. If it was 3-1, for example, you could say, motion carries 3-1 with counselor, opposition in opposition.
We will get back to you with a solid answer at the next meeting.
Could we wait until we have a firm answer and we can go back to another one?
That is up to you guys.
Council, do you have any questions or comments on that? Should we put it back or?
I think we're fine.
I was gonna say, if there's a concern, you can make a contingent motion. So we'll go back and look. If we find something that's different, we'll give you the updated information, give you an opportunity to amend it. Otherwise, we can move it forward. If you want to make it contingent, we
I
can do
think
that.
the digital one would be wise. How would we phrase that?
Well, if we wanted to just table it, we can. So I would make a motion to table it until our next meeting, once we get more research. The problem is that it's already been done, so we can't go back and redo the meeting as per. We would have to just, the whole thing for us to do is to see that the minutes are correct and go from there. That's what, that's what the motion is ultimately doing. It's not going back and changing the information that's there, right?
Exactly, we're just making the, we're.
Right. Well, and then we can also make a motion from this day forward to see what we do. Hello, Mom? So I would make a motion that we, Mayor, if you don't mind, I would make a motion that we table consent item agenda 6.1 and 6.2 until our next meeting, until we get more information.
Thank you for your motion. Give me a second for motion, please.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I forgot I need to do a roll call.
Correct.
Councilmember. Councilmember.
Aye.
Councilmember Dennisville,
Aye.
Councilmember Ashley Wheeler,
Aye.
Councilmember Bruce.
Aye.
Thank you. All right, moving on now to new business items, we have 7.1 proclamation to the Two Rivers Correctional Employee Recognition. You vote on first, we vote on it, and then
It could be either way, Mayor, and, their vote is to just accept or recognize your proclamation.
this time looking for a motion to be allowed to do the proclamation.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we accept and acknowledge the proclamation to Two Rivers Correctional Institution employee recognition.
Thank you for your voting. The second to the motion, please.
I will second that motion.
Councilmember Jarrett.
Aye.
Councilmember McMillan.
Aye.
Councilmember Wheeler.
Did you say Wheeler?
Yes.
Aye.
Councilmember.
Aye.
Thank you. Whereas the nation's correctional employees and employees of the Two Rivers Correctional Institute have dedicated themselves to providing a safe and secure, humane environment for those adults in custody housed throughout the nation's correctional system. And whereas the Two Rivers Correctional Institution employees are committed to ensuring that the citizens of the city of Umatilla, Umatilla County, and the state of Oregon are safe from harm, and adults in custody in their care are secure within the ERCI facilities. And whereas employees of the Two River Correctional Institution have always demonstrated their support in the city of Umatill's efforts towards making the city a better place to live and work. Whereas the city of Umatilla recognizes the employees of the Two Rivers Correctional Institution and have contributed many volunteer hours to our community. And whereas the citizens of the city of Umatilla declare their support for the correctional program of the Two Rivers Correctional Institution and have employees therefore, and whereas correctional officers are most deserving of our respect, our thanks, and the highest praise. The men and women working in corrections are making a difference in our community. Now, therefore, I, Kate Forsyth, the mayor of the city of Umatilla, do hereby proclaim the week of May 5th, 2025 through May 9th as the TRCI Employee Recognition. Thank you for your service.
And thank you, sir. Thank you.
Moving on to 7.2, very exciting one here that we have the swearing in of a new police department chaplain, volunteer Kelly.
Since the room's up, so we're gonna do a little different. Everybody hear me?
Yep.
Yes, sir.
Want to gather around?
Okay. I had the right, like, keep my thoughts together. So, members of council, Mr. Mayor, it is with great honor that I introduce you to Kelly Rios, who is the new civilian volunteer police chaplain for the Umatilla Police Department. Kelly brings a wealth of experience and deep commitment to serving both law enforcement personnel and the community. In her previous role as chaplain with the Umatilla County Sheriff's Office, Kelly provided invaluable support and guidance for officers, staff, and community. Her compassionate approach and unwavering dedication have made a lasting impact, fostering resilience and unity within the department. UPE is implementing a robust officer wellness program. Kelly's appointment aligns seamlessly with this program as she brings not only her expertise, but also a profound understanding of the unique challenges faced by law enforcement officers. Just have a brief video.
Oh, 1 minute. I don't have it on yet. You? If you give me a minute, I can pull it.
Mission is to create safety and well-being of our community. The role as chaplain will serve a pillar of support, offering solace and strength to those who serve and protect. Please join me in extending a warm welcome to Kelly Rios as she takes on this vital role within the Umatilla Police Department. Her dedication and fostering a supportive and resilient environment for all. And as you can see, if you look throughout the room, the majority of everybody that there is either directly in law enforcement or they are with their significant others. So you have a very big following, very top.
The Catherine of the Police Department. Someone swear that I will uphold the principles of the department. I will uphold the principles of this department. Provide compassionate and confidential support. Provide compassionate and confidential support to officers. And serve as a bridge. Between the agency and broader community. I recognize my position. As a symbol of public faith. As long as I am true to the ethics of my position. As chaplain for the Umatilla Police Department. Congratulations.
Winner is Kelly Rios of Umatilla. This week, is going to be sworn in as the chaplain for the Umatilla Police Department. While in that role, Kelly will focus on the health and wellness of her colleagues and community. This is an incredible position for her due to the outstanding work she and her daughter, Bria, have been doing to encourage folks to be more familiar and comfortable with our law enforcement. Thank you for your service, Kelly.
For Kelly, once again, congratulations. Thank you for coming this evening.
Welcome, Kelly. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly.
We first read for ordinance amending chapters 3 and 4 of the Umatilla, or City of Umatilla zoning ordinance by allowing duplexes in the single-family residence zones, decreasing the density standard. Multi-family dwelling for allowing applications of looking for a short reading by title.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion. For a first reading of ordinance 874 by title only.
Thank you for a motion. Please second motion, please.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. Councilmember.
Aye.
Councilmember Mill.
Aye.
Councilmember Wheeler.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Stand while we have a reading of.
Ordinance number 874, an ordinance amending chapters 3 and 4 of the City of Umatilla zoning ordinance by allowing duplexes in single-family residential zone, decreasing density standards for multi-family dwellings, and allowing gasoline stations in the downtown commercial zone.
Okay, at this time, council, we are looking for a motion to adjourn.
Mr.
I would make a motion to adjourn. Umatilla City Council meeting.
Thank you for the motion. Be a second to the motion, please.
I'll second it.
Thank you for your second motion. Councilmember Bucklaw,
Aye.
Councilmember Young,
Aye.
Councilmember Wheeler,
Aye.
Councilmember McLean.
Aye.
Thank you, voted. We are now adjourned. And now we are going to go ahead and start our budget committee. So places, everybody, come on, join the meeting table. It's gonna be a long night. Get started.
Ashley, can you hear us?
I can.
Thank you. Let's see here. Is Andrea here?
She's on.
She's online. Okay, Josie, can you hand those over, please?
Sure.
Right. It's not there, but over there. Denise. Judy. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right.
So, mine said.
Okay.
Oh.
It appears that I do not.
That's not very nice.
I did at one
You can
point.
have mine.
Did you take it? Okay.
I get your hair though.
Counselor Funderburk. Counselor Wheeler.
Here.
Counselor McLean.
Here.
Counselor Dufflock.
Here.
Counselor Katie McMillan. Counselor Dennis McMillan.
Here.
Budget Committee Member Rick Cotterill. Andrea Barrera.
Here.
Judy Simmons. Brett Cahill. Denise Pratt.
Here.
Delfino Osorio. Josie Chavez. Mayor Sipe.
Let's do it one more time. Come on.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We're looking for approval of the agenda as it currently stands. Are there any questions on the agenda pertinent to this budget? Okay. This time we're looking. Gender conflict of interest to declare now, or do we do it during the
Likely right when we start new business.
Okay, yeah.
Any further questions? Okay, at this time we're looking for a vote.
I would make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Thank you. I second the motion, please.
I'll second it.
Okay.
Counselor Wheeler.
Aye.
Counselor McLean.
Aye.
Counselor Dufflock.
Aye.
Counselor McMillan.
Aye.
I don't even know what to call you guys. Committee Member Cotterill. Committee Member Barrera.
Aye.
Committee Member Simmons. Committee Member Cahill. Committee Member Pratt.
Aye.
Committee Member Osorio.
Aye.
Committee Member Chavez.
Now this time we're looking to elect a chairperson. Does anyone have a nomination for a chair individual at this time?
For clarification, the chair can be any member of city council or budget committee.
Mr. Mayor, I would make a motion, we elect Bruce McLean as the chairperson.
Can we have a second?
I'll second that.
For a roll call.
Counselor Wheeler.
Aye.
Counselor McLean.
Aye.
Counselor Dufflock.
Aye.
Counselor McMillan.
Aye.
Committee Member Cotterill. Committee Member Barrera.
Aye.
Committee Member Simmons. Committee Member Cahill. Committee Member Pratt.
Aye.
Committee Member Osorio.
Aye.
Committee Member Chavez.
Thank you, sir. No.
Okay, I don't know. Public comment?
Chair McLean,
Well,
we have public comment that was submitted via email. And then the sharing public hearings.
Thank you for letting me get. Public comment?
Yeah, it's ready for the podium.
Foxy Guard.
There should be a script over there, I think.
We didn't have a script because
I've got a reference.
it's only on the budget items, not on any items
Yeah.
on the city council agenda, so there's not a.
Right. It's only on budget items.
3.
It's 3 minutes. It's,
We haven't changed it yet.
that was 5 minutes.
3 minutes.
No, it's 5. I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, it's 5, yeah.
5 minutes.
Yep.
Sorry.
And it can only be about budget items, right?
Okay,
Please state your name and address.
Roxy, can you put the press down on the microphone and speak into it?
Yeah, so where it's red, make it turn red on the little button.
Yes.
Yeah. Red means go. There you go.
I'm Roxy Budge, PO Box 1287, Umatilla, Oregon. I want to thank the mayor and the council for hearing this. I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak to you this evening during your budget deliberation. I'm here to speak in strong support of Rock Blocks Music Festival, an event that has quickly become a cornerstone of pride, economic vitality, and community spirit here in Umatilla. I'm also here to voice my strong support of the process in which you have chosen to help you make the decision. That is, that it should be included in this year's budget. If you make a policy decision in July that doesn't support the event, moving forward, then you can always reappropriate those funds to something else. But please do not essentially cancel the event now by not funding it while you are actively gathering community input. Each year, the festival brings thousands of visitors into our town, and the impact is felt far and wide. From local restaurants, gas stations, to our small retail shops and food trucks. The majority of our small businesses see a substantial increase in customers and sales. For some, this single weekend represents one of their most profitable stretches of the year. That's not just exciting, it's essentially for long-term sustainability and growth in a rural economy like ours. But the true value of Rock Blocks goes beyond the dollars and cents. It creates a joyful, energetic atmosphere that resonates with all ages. It brings together family and friends, neighbors, and even strangers that leave this town as friends. It fills our community with music, laughter, celebration. It lifts our spirits and reminds us that Umatilla is not just a place we live, it's a place we love. Events like this breathe life into the community. They boost our quality of life. They give our residents of all ages something positive to look forward to. And they give parents, grandparents, and longtime residents a sense of pride and growth and energy.
that we are building together. We often talk about retaining our young families in this community and attracting new residents and revitalizing our downtown. This festival is doing just that. It shows that Umatilla is alive with possibility, and it's a community willing to put themselves out there and to work hard to try and achieve something truly unique and spectacular. Make no mistake, this community supports this. I have been out in this community. I've been beyond this community. I've talked to people across the whole PNW about this event, and there is major support. The majority of our residents have made it clear through attendance, volunteering, their social media engagement, and business participation, they want this festival. They're proud of it. They see it as a point of growth and progress. I urge you to continue supporting Rock the Locks, not just as an event, but as a catalyst for economic activity, for community engagement, and for the future we're building together. Let's keep investing in what brings us together, showcasing our strengths and puts Umatilla on the map for the right reasons. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Earl Eastman.
Earl Eastman, live in Benton City. I'm a project manager. I have a company called Alliance Construction Management, and we are right now working with the Umatilla School District, and I'm here to speak on behalf of their request to the budget committee. I began working with the Umatilla School District in 2017, helped them with their first bond work. And so I've been working in the community for some time. I had the privilege of helping the hospital district get their beautiful building designed and built, and what a successful project that was. And one of the reasons I'm here tonight was during that project, there were some hospital district board members that were ferocious fundraisers. Thinking of one in particular, probably you guys can envision, who was continually knocking on the city's door and every door possible, trying to help us raise money. And the city was a participant in helping fund part of that project. So when when the school district selected my firm to help with this most current bond, that was a fresh memory for me, was that contribution, and she known about that as well. So I was hired after the bond was already passed, and so the funds were kind of known. But in the early planning stages, we did sit down with the city as well, with Stockdale, and I think with the planning committee to talk about the strategy of the project, and it was discussed that since we knew this other project had these funds, what do we need to do to see if we could get the same funds? And now we're here because I guess we made a formal request to be in front of the budget committee or to be considered as part of this budget the last few months. And I just want to say that it would be a very meaningful piece of the project. In addition to the two new buildings, we have numerous other things that we're doing as a part of this bond, and a contribution such as the one that we requested in the letter would go a long ways in helping make the schools safer and better places for the community. And in as much as we had that early discussion, we've been kind of counting on it, if you will, and maybe mistakenly, obviously, but it would be critical to the success of the future projects that remain after the two new buildings open this fall. So this probably is going to be an interactive visit. I think that's all I have to say on that point. is that, yeah, from our standpoint, we've been kind of planning on it, hoping it would be there, kind of expecting it to be there. And we submitted a letter, as told that we needed to, and hope that, it's considered as being a merit. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Commissioner McLean, is this the only time that there'll be public comment?
Yes, that's only public comment on the agenda.
In case anybody has come in late and wanted to sign up.
Mia?
It's Mia Paget, and I live at 404 Walla Walla Street in Umatilla, Oregon. And I thank you all for hearing, my public comment. I wasn't planning on speaking tonight. I don't know anything about how the budget process works. But I did hear a passionate and very eloquent speech given by our friend here at the beginning of the meeting. And I think that what she said highlights how passionate people are about the Rock the Locks Festival. And what I'd like to say is I live 200 feet from the main stage, and the festival has upended some parts of my life and others of my neighbors. And in whatever budget process that you have, I think it's important, although you may hear that a lot of positivity from people who are enjoying the festival, and we do have a lot of efforts made to try to reduce the noise problems. Those noise problems may not, it may not be possible to reduce them to a level that is livable for those of us who live there. So in essence, if you want this to be a great thing, as she described it, that brings a lot to the city, then the option of moving the stages to another location really needs to be looked at. Last week, we had a meeting and I asked the city manager whether or not there had been a study done to figure out what will be the costs, what are the options, other options for moving the stages further away from people's houses. That's been asked a few times. It was brought up, it was laid out last summer when we had meetings with the neighborhood. And the city council asked, when I came in the fall, asked Dave Stockdale if that had been done. He said no. I asked him last week, and he said no, there was no plan to do that. At this stage, you're just planning to continue doing the festival very close to people's houses. In the budget, you're probably looking at longer term things. In the longer term, it does matter if something's going to cost you, it costs $500,000 to move those stages. But if it's costing you an extra $100,000 or $200,000 a year to try to reduce the noise to a level that's livable to us, and it's costing us a lot financially, it's hard to put a dollar sign on that. But some of us may have to sell our houses and move if this continues in the way it is. There's a lot of uncertainty for us. In the beginning, we were told that there may be 2 or more of these festivals per year. So we're basically being kicked out of our houses for a certain number of days a year. Now, we have specific health conditions. We have reasons for having moved into a private golf course. Now we're being told that we live on a public park because it was bought by the city of Umatilla and turned into a park. But those of us who live there, it wasn't a public park when we bought our houses there, when we retired there to a quiet community. So in your budget process, it's really important to look at the long-term impacts, look at the long-term costs and consequences, and try to do it in a way that is looking at everybody involved, not just the people who are really enjoying it, but the people who are put out by it. So that's the main thing I want to ask. The other thing I wanted to, I don't know if I have a couple minutes more. I just wanted to ask the question somebody asked in the beginning about the recusal process or in the budget process for Rock the Locks. I think it's a pretty large portion of budget that you're looking at. And it's pretty important that there's no perception of conflict of interest. So if there are people who are involved in the budget process who may have a conflict of interest because they have a financial interest, I mean, it's probably pretty difficult to determine, but if you have a financial interest in the Rock the Locks, it may be that you need to find somebody else to be making the decisions at this time. So I think it's important for you as a committee to look at the recusal process for decisions surrounding the budget for Rock the Locks. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. I also have written testimony, something that I will read in. This is from Heidi's site. Good evening. I'm sorry to email. However, I have other professional obligations this evening and cannot attend in person. I would like to be certain there are a couple of areas considered by the budget committee prior to adoption of city's budget. Firstly, public budgets are intended to be a reflection of the values of voters. The city has tremendous growth to celebrate, and the city's budget growth over the past 10 years is astounding, and an incredible opportunity for important investment. Staff have done commendable work to reach these levels. Our city resources from all funds exceed those of many larger cities in our area. Last year, Hermiston's all fund total was $564,064. Pendleton was $109,697,385. Pendleton's population exceeds 17,000. Hermiston population exceeds 19,000. This year, you are considering $143 million budget to serve 7,755, including inmates, PRCI. We have unheard of opportunities, and careful investment of these funds is crucial. From the school perspective, we requested $500,000 this year because it was funding offer. We didn't see this, it was offered for any purpose. We have planned on the offer and have planned on utilizing it for our facility projects that are set to be completed in September. It wasn't included in last year's budget and wasn't presented as an option. This year, it's again not presented as an option. However, that's a decision that can be made tonight, and I urge you all to at least question and understand why the offer would be made and revote. Please also consider why there have been direct funds provided for the hospital district building without a funding formula or guide to consider how other taxing districts should be supported for capital projects in an equitable manner. More broadly, this isn't time to go into fine details, but the taxing districts impacted by the enterprise zones have not been included in enterprise zone allocation discussions. We keep bringing this to the city's attention as the city managers. Pardon me, I'm going to back up. We keep bringing this to the city's attention because City Manager Stockdale is the manager of the enterprise zone. He is the person who negotiates, and we're asking for a seat at the table and a discussion about community needs, SIP agreements, payment in lieu of taxes, enterprise zones. No matter the term, it's money that taxing districts are not receiving and voicing expending. One-off agreements made with individual districts are not productive for overall community impact. There are significant funds dedicated to reserves in this budget. I request the budget committee decide tonight to set aside an allocation from those funds to be dedicated to the various taxing districts that are included in the enterprise zone. Then there could be a meeting with all of the various taxing districts to determine the allocation of those funds amongst the various districts. This is not a final step, but it's a first step that shows the community's priority of all taxing districts, not just the city and county. Thank you for your consideration. Thank you. That is public comment. Next on to consent agenda. Item 7. So you looking about any comments or discussion on consent agenda?
Yeah, I still have the same question about the roll call. I don't know if we should that was not. I'm not sure what else is going for what the ORS states for roll calls. I'm not sure. So
I make a motion that we do it individually, just like we've been doing, just to cover the bases until we get more information.
if I'm saying like for these early campsites.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's you do, but these are minutes, so do we wait on those minutes?
No, I just think that from now on, when we make this motion, we just do it appropriately now.
Okay.
I think we'll be okay with that, unless we table it again, but this is the budget committee, so it's like, I don't know that we can table it till forever now. Mr. Chairman, what's your thoughts?
Well, the time limitation on this, probably the thing to do is proceed with, looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda and roll call vote.
Okay. Sounds good to me.
So I would accept the motion.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we accept the agenda as presented. Is that what you're looking for? Mr. Chair, I'm sorry. Consent agenda.
I'll second it.
Counselor Wheeler,
Aye.
Counselor McLean,
Aye.
Counselor Duffloff,
Aye.
Counselor McMillan,
Aye.
Committee Member Cotterall, Committee Member Barrera,
Aye.
Committee Member Simmons, Committee Member Cahill, Committee Member Pratt,
Aye.
Committee Member Osorio,
Aye.
Committee Member Chavez.
I believe so, yes.
Mayor Sype.
Sharing public. Public hearing is now open to any motion. So, make a motion to open public hearing on state road sharing.
I would like to motion that we have the hearing.
Thank you, the motion, second.
I'll second it.
Roll call, please.
Counselor Wheeler,
Aye.
Counselor McLean.
Aye.
Counselor Duffloff,
Aye.
Counselor McMillan,
Aye.
Committee Member Cotterall, Committee Member Barrera,
Aye.
Committee Member Simmons, Committee Member Cahill,
Aye.
Committee Member Pratt,
Aye.
Committee Member Osorio,
Aye.
Committee Member Chavez, Mayor Sype.
Okay, public hearing is now open for purpose of considering possible use of state revenue sharing. The procedure I'd like to follow this tonight is this manner: A, report from staff; B, public testimony; C, committee comments or questions; D, close hearing. Please provide the staff report at this time.
Yes, thank you. So we are required to hold 2 public hearings on state revenue sharing funds. The first will be tonight before the budget committee, and then the second will be again at city council prior to budget adoption. We are required in order to get the funds from the state to allow those 2 opportunities to comment specifically on the use of the state revenue sharing. And after those hearings, I will prepare a resolution declaring the city's election to receive those funds. Some of this information is going to be repetitive from what we talked about in our budget workshop. State revenue sharing distributions are mainly made based on certified population statistics from Portland State University. For the next fiscal year, those projections are up by 170 or 187 people for a total of 8,256, which is 2.3% increase from the prior year. The revenues that flow into the general fund are the liquor revenues and city cigarette tax revenues. Of the liquor revenues, the cities receive 34% of the liquor tax. That's split 2 ways. The first is 20%, which is on a straight per capita basis. The amount per capita is decreasing, but we're seeing some offset in the decrease by the population growth. The total allocation in the proposed budget is $131,000, which is a $35,000 decrease from the year before. The remaining 14% of liquor revenues is distributed on a little bit more complicated formula that factors in property taxes, population, and income. For the upcoming year, we are also seeing a decrease in that. We have an allocation in the proposed budget of $130,000, which is a $52,000 decrease from the prior year. And as we've seen over the past many years, cigarette tax revenues continue to decline. We only receive 1.7% of the total cigarette tax, which for us in the next year only equates to 59 cents per capita on an allocation of $4,870. All of these combined is a decrease to the general fund from the prior year of about $87,000. The other state revenue sharing that we receive is highway fund revenues through gas tax into the street fund. We have seen a 10% gas tax increase since 2017, but that increase has maxed out. We receive about 16% of all of that revenue collected, which is going to remain relatively flat in the upcoming year. We will see growth just due to the population increase, so we're increasing by about 50,000 to an allocation of 670,000. The money that flows into the general fund is not restricted. It just goes to support the operations of the general fund, whereas the highway fund revenues that go into the street fund are restricted and must be used on street projects only. That's my report for you.
Thank you. I have this persons wishing to testify about the, hearing on state revenue. Please identify yourself, give your name and address for the record. Seeing no one, are there any committee comments?
None at this time.
And at this point, public hearing is now closed. I need a motion. Need a motion to close the public hearing.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion, we close the public hearing. Mr. Chairman. Sorry.
Sorry.
Committee member, I'm sorry, Counselor Wheeler,
Aye.
Counselor McLean.
Aye.
Committee, Counselor Duffloff,
Aye.
Counselor McLean. Counselor McMillan,
Aye.
Committee member Cotterall, Committee member Barrera,
Aye.
Committee member Simmons, Committee member Cahill, Committee member Pratt,
Aye.
Committee member Osorio,
Aye.
Committee member Chavez, Mayor Sipe.
Okay, moving on to item number 9, new business, presentation of fiscal year 2025-26 budgetness.
All right, so before I start, Chair, I'd like to provide an opportunity for those budget committee members that may have any actual or potential conflict of interest, and then we'll also have a separate one when we talk about stipend as well.
Yeah, no need to declare stipend now. We'll do that separately, but if there's any other conflicts that you'd like to declare, now would be the time.
I will declare a potential conflict of interest because it's in the last meeting and with me, my son Alan Torres is hired by the city to do the park.
And my son works for the city also, and he like works for Rock the Locks and stuff. I don't know if that's a,
So you have to declare either a potential or a actual.
would be actual, wouldn't it? Because he does work when he works at the Rock the Locks events and stuff. So I'd declare an actual conflict of interest.
Okay, go ahead.
Actual or potential?
I don't know.
So we can break this up a couple different ways on how we discuss. So if you have an actual conflict of interest that impacts the entire budget, then you'll need to excuse yourself for the discussion deliberations. If we want, as we talk about the personnel specifics in the budget here,
Right.
I would say that we can, for the two of you that declared on personnel, and I think you'll have one as well. We'll want to make sure that that portion, we can compartmentalize our discussion, have a portion on personnel that's separate and make sure that you're not participating in that portion. The rest of it, the idea when we counseled with state ethics about this topic here, the whole point of budget committee is to have, vigorous and deliberate discussions here. And so not to quiet people, but to encourage people to participate. So I think we separated that way. If you're all right with that, Melissa and Nancy.
Yeah, I think when we can separate parks and recreation wages and police wages, and anything else that we need to, we can take them individually.
Yeah, and I would also I have an actual, because of my son working for the police department, which is an employee, so that would be a labor side of it. And I have a potential because of Rock the Locks and my family being involved with potentially providing services at Rock the Locks. So I have a potential there and an actual for a city, anything to do with workers. That'd be right.
Potentially, has Parks and Rec ever given you like the business any like karaoke nights or anything like that?
Any what?
Any karaoke nights or any events like happen?
Yes.
Would that be Parks?
Yeah, so anything to do with the event,
Yeah, it could be any parks farming. I mean, I would, it's your conflict of interest to declare. It's up to you how specific or broad you want to be on that.
right. I mean, I didn't receive any funding, but they held the event there, so I don't know how that would be. I didn't receive any funding from the city. I don't know how that works. So I'll declare a potential with anything to do with the Parks and Rec. Just like I did with the other. I think that's right.
And conflict of interest, like as a consulting business that's land use planning, and she has done some work for the city in the past. There's nothing on the books currently, but it is a potential.
Right? We,
Anybody else? We're all intertwined.
well, I'll say we're a small town
Yep.
and it's not uncommon at all
Yep.
for small communities to have
Multiple.
people working for the city or interacting with the city in many ways. So thank you for pause and the opportunity to do that. My message focuses more on high level, what are we doing? And as we get down to the next section on your agenda, we'll get into sort of the brass tacks, so to speak, the line item and into the spreadsheets. For me, what I wanted to focus on was the message that I included with your letter here tonight. I'm not going to read it verbatim, but I'll kind of go through some of the general highlights. In general, the budget you're seeing overall is seeing a significant reduction across all funds, mainly due to the fact that the current fiscal year that we're in now, we're completing many capital improvement projects or have started capital improvement projects now that will be completed in the upcoming fiscal year. Just to name some of those, we've completed the pedestrian bridge. We've started work on the Umatilla Business Center. We've made improvements to the Nugent Park Playground and Pavilion, as well as completing our Trail 2 construction. We'll also, we are out to bid right now. We'll start construction on Powerline Road and Madison Road, improvements in anticipation and preparation for the intermediate school to begin this fall. In addition to that, we have several other partnerships with Confederated Tribes and with private industry as well, as we can, particularly as we look at our major point of diversion project on the Columbia River. That's our initial stage to take raw river water from the Columbia River to meet those industrial purposes, in this case, mostly cooling for data centers, but will also be the initial step to meeting our master plan of 2037, transitioning into a hybrid water delivery system with both surface and groundwater. So that project is underway now. The budget also takes in to consideration our historic growth that has been here for many, many years and continues to invest substantial funds into our community development, quality of life improvements, amenity investments, business support, and so on, and also continues to make sure that we maintain a healthy and prudent reserve, particularly in our general fund. We, again, I wanted to make sure to take the time to thank members of the community, members of this committee, and our staff members, all of which have participated in some way and to get to where we are today to have this budget discussion and proposal before you. I especially want to take time to thank Melissa and her hard work. CPAs in municipal government, believe it or not, are actually rare, and to have one in the city of Umatilla and have had her here for more than a decade is exceptionally rare. And so we're quite lucky to have that. And for more than 5 years, we received the Distinguished Budget Award. So there's from the Government Finance Officers Association. So there's a lot that we have here with our budget. So really appreciate the work of each of you and to staff. The proposed budget follows our adopted council goals and several of our adopted master plans, as well as attempts to incorporate discussions from our budget committee meeting in March. One of the things that was a little surprising as we started working on this budget this year is that this will be the second year in a row of our property taxes throughout the city decreasing. That's mostly primarily due to we have several data centers in town, as I mentioned before, one of which has completed all of abatement programs. And so they're onto the full tax roll. There's two types of property taxes that are paid. There's one, the real property that's there, and then personal property. Because they have rather substantial personal property, in this case, mostly racks and servers and a couple others in there, they update those as their business sees fit. And we saw a $107 million reduction in what those values are this year, which results into a 3% decrease on top of a 6% decrease from those revenues from the year before. So that was something a little bit unique that we haven't really seen in over a decade. Here is actual reduction in our ad valorem property taxes throughout the city. That was offset by some really strong growth in the city this year. We had over $30 million in mostly residential improvements, some commercial as well over the last year. And so that helped offset some of that ad valorem tax. We also expect continued growth throughout in those participating in our tax abatement agreements through our enterprise zone and our strategic investment programs. I took a moment to highlight, it took about a paragraph here, some links from the League of Oregon Cities as to what the majority of the 241 cities in Oregon are struggling with in regards to property taxes, which is our community is similar to theirs. And it continues to be one of the largest challenges. LLC states that municipalities find it challenging to keep up with the rising cost of providing services when property tax revenues, usually their main funding source, are restricted from growing as quickly. There's a small history there. Measure 5 and 50 from the 90s created our permanent tax rate at 2.9191 and have locked us at an increase of no more than 3% each year based upon an assessed value, not a real market value. And so while those measures were quite good for some districts, they make it quite challenging for municipalities in particular. So one of the things that we'll be looking at here, and we talked about it at the City Council's workshop back in February, and some of our work to do this next year, is to take a look at what the League of Oregon Cities has published in the December 24 report, Local Revenue Reform, Finding a Path Forward, looking at ways in which we can continue to have sustainable revenues to meet the demand of services throughout the city. One of the things I wanted to highlight here is we're going to take an opportunity. We'll probably be looking at tax incremental financing over this next year as a tool for that through the possibility of the creation of an urban renewal district. So some changes or at least things that we will be considering over the next year that aren't necessarily represented in your line items of your budget here, but will certainly have potential budget impacts as we look at fiscal management policies throughout this next year.
Yeah, I got a quick question for you.
Sure.
You mentioned that Amazon, their tax revenue is going to continue to appreciate. When is their fully appreciated still in use? When does that switch happen where we're still getting the items fully appreciated? What's the tax value once it's fully appreciated?
It's cyclical because they replace their racks and servers about every 5 to 7 years. So there's never a point where we're going to completely stabilize.
And it's really difficult to forecast. It's considered proprietary information, and the Department of Revenue won't even share it with us. So when we ask for that information and we ask for a drill down, we can't even get it.
That's fun. Right,
Yeah, no problem.
Our data center partners were very helpful in providing projections for next year.
Yeah.
So do you see them replacing servers every year?
They do it. They do. So every year that number changes from depreciation, but they'll do these sort of mass changes about every 5 to 7 years or so, seems to be the cycle. So you might see it fluctuate relatively small, up or down, maybe 5 to 10 million in value. But these large $100 million swaths are about 7 years.
Now, one of the things that had been brought up before was they were changing from regular servers to AI servers, and there was a value difference in that. And that was also contributing to the lower personal property tax. Do you see that continuing?
Yeah.
That dropped down by quite a bit. Didn't it?
Yeah, so it did, absolutely it did. And so what's been explained to me through that is their technology is always advancing and changing, and certainly, yeah, they switched over to the AI servers. What they say those machines do, rather than just total data storage, it's actual I guess RAM to be able to run and process and process information, not just store it. And so those types of equipment that they have, two things: they take up less physical space in those warehouses, and then they also they're just different types of technology. They don't know at this point how often they need to swap those out. It's brand new, I guess, cutting edge. And so they haven't given us an estimate as to what they anticipate sort of that to be. But up until now, the lifespan on those racks and servers has been about 5 to 7 years. And now with these new replacements, they haven't been able to give us a good estimate for that yet.
Well, so just thinking that, you know, in the future, as fast as that happened, that they needed less space, they could improve their processes that much more and actually use less as time goes on, so that revenues would be affected continuously.
It can,
Mhm.
but anything can. My question would be, so what do we have on the tax roll now? Just PDX one?
PDX2, yeah, there's 5, which is the facility located at 730 and Beach Access Road. There's 5 total buildings at that campus. 4 of them are on the tax roll. The last building was put into the strategic investment program.
And then so that's the only one right now that is giving us any kind of money.
We also have the land value of the
Right.
other.
Yeah.
How long until the?
It's all based upon the year in which they received their certificate of occupancy. So right now, the next one that will come on out of the abatement program is PDX 63, which is the facility located on Lind Road, and it has 8 years left in its abatement program. And then each.
The last one is 2044.
Yeah. Because we still have 2 that have not even broken ground yet. Actually, three. 44. Because we have 3 data center facilities right now that have not broken ground yet. And so they have their contract, but the abatements don't kick in until they get their certificate of occupancy. Very good questions.
But I think that's part of the misconception a lot of people have, is that money is not here. It will come here, but it's gonna be trickled in over the next 20 years.
Well, it's here in lieu of tax.
Correct, in lieu, yeah, yeah.
Money is.
Here, but.
Yeah,
Pay me now. pay
Yeah,
me-
all 7 data center facilities, right now, well, there's 1, but all 7 will be completed through abatement programs by 2044. Yeah. I wanted to take 30 more seconds on your question, Denise, on the space. And it certainly is a potential risk of the need of the space perhaps being declining. One thing that we get asked a lot is people are concerned about the risk of sort of picking up and leaving and maybe going somewhere else. Because of things like that, they don't need the space, they don't need the technology. And I suppose the risk level is never 0. But as we've maybe mentioned, I'm not sure here or in other meetings before, but Brandon can fill me in on this stuff too. But it takes, by the time they break ground to build a facility, they're usually about 5 to 7 years worth of due diligence into that, plus tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars of investment, and it's some infrastructure that comes with it. So the land use that's required, the infrastructure, including power, water, sanitary sewer, non-contact cooling water, those kinds of things, those are major time commitments and investments. And so could they pick up and go? Absolutely. That's always a risk. The likelihood, I do think, though, is low. What's been talked with us as they looked at the AI server replacement, even though we don't have a timeline on that, just means that they've been more efficient with the technologies that they have, so that they're able to sort of put in sort of more processing, more storage power. And the equipment that's coming in, what's nice is on our water use side is that they don't run as hot. So we'll get even more efficient with water as the technology of water cooling technologies get better too. So they'll get more and more efficient that way as well. So it's nice on the water sustainability side, but on the revenue side, that's an impact. That's less water that we're selling and less revenue coming into the water fund. So there's sort of trade-offs for both.
It just occurred to me that you can't always count on that money continuing at the rate it's been coming in at.
Yeah, I think it's been with PDX2, it's different than what we had now. It was on 5-year abatements per building. And so what the community saw happen for the last 7 or 8 years or so was the very first building came out off the abatement in 2018, I think, and the next one in 2020, and the next one in 22, and the next one in 23. And so it's sort of gradually come off that way. The rest of these facilities are a one and done deal. There is no sort of gradual coming out of it. It's a 15-year chunk from the very first building. And we did that to incentivize them to build these buildings immediately, because whether they have one building in the abatement or all four in the abatement, they get the same abatement. And so it's in their best financial interest to build as quickly as they can to get them up and running and operating and bring those services and those jobs to the community. All right. Happy to continue to answer any questions on that as we're going. Okay. Next section, we talked about payment in lieu of taxes, and specifically that there. And so for the most part, that's what I put in here, is it's going to remain that what we receive now will remain steady for this next year, but with no additional property tax coming out of the abatement, like as I mentioned, for the next 8 years. We will see PDX 194, which is the facility up on South Hill. They did receive their certificate of occupancy, and so they will make their first payment this coming November, which is this upcoming fiscal year. So there is an increase in those funds there. As I mentioned before, across all funds, we're looking at a 20% reduction, or 36.7 million, and that's mostly because of the completion there, but of projects. But we are continuing to make investments this fiscal year as well. A lot of that, like I said, Powerline Road and Madison improvements, as well as our water reservoir expansion project. Hash Park Sports Complex has substantial funds in this budget to begin and hopefully complete our design and engineering, our wastewater treatment plant facility improvement and expansion projects, and our Power City and Brownell water and sewer installation projects. There are several others, but those are certainly our largest ticketed items. One of the things, just to sort of hammer home the growth, which I think are here, so I won't spend much time on it, but throughout all of Oregon, all cities between 5,000 and 10,000 in population. Last year, we were the 10th largest growing city in the state of Oregon. And I'm sorry, the 6th. And then for all cities in Oregon, we were the 10th fastest growing city for all cities in Oregon last year. Let's see. One of the things I mentioned on there before, in order to keep up with the growth that's here and to be strategic in managing that growth, means to be sure to invest in our infrastructure to meet those needs, particularly water, sewer, roads, solid waste or trash removal. And we continue to make substantial investments in this budget. You'll also see some improvements with our water main, which are projects that get done that most people don't see because they're pipes that go in underground. But we are making substantial improvements, as I mentioned, to Brownell and Power City areas, Port of Entry, Locust Street, Division Street, L Street, and 7th Street as water main improvements this proposed budget. We also have updated systems to prevent damages to our existing systems that are here. So there's a lot of preventative maintenance in those water systems to combat corrosion and to ensure high water quality, to make sure that we continue to get healthy water quality reports that we submit to the state each year. This is our largest appropriation to date into our local businesses through our downtown facade grant and local business grant programs of $400,000 specific earmarks for those. And this budget also includes funding of our incubator program at the business center. It also has investments into our tourism related economy with festivals, recreation, and sports. Slight decrease in our recreation program funding, but it's sufficient to meet those needs of our recreation programs. We're rolling forward funding from our wayfinding master plan. No additional funds that are not already earmarked here, just whatever we've spent down, we'll roll that forward into this year. We continue to have our landing day celebration, and that will come back. That's sports, tournaments, kids corner, and fireworks. And for the 3rd year, we have our Rock the Locks Music Festival scheduled for the last weekend of September. And then finally, our reserves. Council has an adopted goal to attempt to try to get to 20% general fund reserve. This budget actually goes down in a percentage from 17.75 to 17.01%, but it is an increase of $70,000 to the reserve fund, so that the fund has gone up, but it's a smaller percentage from the overall general fund. Our water reserves and sewer reserves are continuing to stay healthy and also continuing to grow as well. We also need to make sure that we meet our debt service requirements. And part of that is not only maintaining a healthy reserve, but also making sure that we have enough cash on hand according to the terms of those loans. So most of those have at least 1 year of reserves required. Some of them require 2 years worth of payments in those. And you'll see that as well. And we have some upcoming projects like our reserve improvement project and our wastewater treatment plant upgrades are coming this year. And that will also be looking at both a combination of hopefully grant funds, debt services, and cash on hand. Overall, we continue to have to manage the growth that's here, to prepare for the future, to invest in our infrastructure, make sure that we have healthy reserves to meet the fluctuations that we have with our revenue coming in, primarily from property tax fluctuations, and also be able to continue to invest in our systems that help meet in those infrastructure systems to meet those demands and to meet the goals of the council. With that, that's all I have for you as far as what we're looking to achieve in this budget.
Thank you for the budget message. Item 9.2, discussion of proposed budget document. How do you want to proceed with that, Melissa?
Yeah, since we have a couple conflict issues, let's I propose that we take those first individually, make motions to approve or not certain components of the budget that may cause potential or actual conflicts, and then we can address the remaining budget as a whole once we're done with that. So I think if we can start with the stipend issue.
Everybody okay with that as a concept for getting through this?
Thank you very much.
Okay, so in order to do that, we will need to go around the table with our elected officials to declare actual conflicts of interest for the stipend, and then the rest of the committee can proceed with that.
I can decide if there are actual conflict of interest, you go and use the class.
First of all, I declare an actual conflict of interest with regards to stipend.
I, Darren Duffloth, declare an actual conflict. Yes, thank you. Thank you.
I, Dennis McMillan, declare an actual conflict of interest with the stipend.
Ashley?
I, Ashley Wheeler, declare an actual conflict of interest.
I think I got everybody. At our last workshop, there was discussion on the amount of the council stipend. And an action item that I had was to do a little bit of research on what other jurisdictions or municipalities are doing and the amounts of their stipend. So I will read you off a list of what we found. We also found League of Oregon Cities did an elected official compensation survey. It is a little bit old now, it's from 2020, but it had quite a bit of data as well. So right now, from the ones we were able to get a hold of individually, the Hermiston City Council has a stipend of $100 per month, with the mayor having a higher stipend of $250 per month. LeGrand Council has a stipend of $70 per month, with the mayor having a stipend of $90 per month. Milton Freewater, their council, everybody receives $126.50. Baker City is their council just receives $10 per meeting that they attend. And then again, these ones are a little dated, so there is a chance that they have changed since then. I will read down the ones that are closest to us in population. A lot of these are higher. Cresswell has a population of 5,360. They actually have 3 tiers. Their councilors get 125. The council president gets 150, and the mayor gets 225. Hood River, their population is 7,760 as of the time of this, and they got a $50 per month stipend. Ontario has a population of 11,465 at this time, with $150 stipend. It looks like most of the other ones were much larger than. So if the committee has any other questions, or would like to have any discussion about the stipend, in the proposed budget, the stipend was just allocated as currently set in previous budgets and through council policy of $100 per month per council.
Guess I'm surprised that it's that low for all of those cities. Yeah, I think it should probably just stay the same then, $100 a month.
I still think there's validity in per meeting. More so like based on attendance, right? If you're not attending the meetings, not that people aren't necessarily, but I think a per meeting, granted, I don't know if you guys know how many meetings are scheduled every.
23.
We have
There's 20.
23 regular council meetings, and then there's usually at least one workshop that occurs each year, so 20.
It's quality.
Yeah, if we wanted to switch to a per meeting and keep it relatively the same, $50 is probably what would get us closest to what we have per meeting. But the policy won't necessarily change by your budget decision. That would need to go through as councils updating their policies.
Yeah, so the way that the policy is written now, it just says that the council will receive a stipend according to the amount appropriated through the annual budget process. And so if you were to propose a higher line item for that and a higher dollar amount, we could adjust, or lower, we can adjust. If the budget committee would like to suggest a per meeting, this is the venue to do that. And so one where it gets tricky, and we got some help from, I'll grab this one, where we got some help from some of our neighboring cities. What they've done is, because so every time an elected official talks about their participates in talking about compensation, in this case a stipend, it's always an actual conflict of interest. And so there we have this sort of catch-22 problem where they're not supposed to talk, but they have to pass. So there's a different ORS, and I don't know the number, that says when you face that sort of catch-22, the minimum number that have to participate and vote. And so what the DAOs does, what their attorney talked to us here, said is, okay, so those that are not up for the next election, they'll be the ones that meet that minimum discussion, and they'll have that conversation. And then 2 years later, sort of the next half of the group, they'll have that conversation, and they sort of do that sort of ping pong back and forth of who has that discussion. They sent over a draft policy for that. And so in the month of May, next month, when council starts looking at the rules again, I'll present that to them, as seems to be what other cities are doing. It seems to be working well, something that we should consider in our policy. So if you wanted to go to a per meeting, for example, we could certainly do something like that. If you wanted to keep it flat for the month, we could. But then we could also create this sort of updated procedure of how they do that as well.
What do you guys
Make
think?
sure, like, think your question too, is like, well, if they don't go to the meeting, they don't get the money. And that's not necessarily what we're talking.
I mean, you can, if the budget committee would like to propose that, we could put that into updated policy. We would do something similar when they update their council rules. We would probably spec that line item just out and let those that are not up for this upcoming election have that discussion and determine whether it goes in, especially since their policies get updated every 2 years. So the next group would get the same opportunity 2 years later to have that discussion. So it lines up with the way that they're kind of doing it now.
What do you guys?
And most of the times it is like 2 weeks.
Typically, yeah.
I think that a good idea, because then it's kind of like holding them accountable for their responsibility to the city council. And I mean, a lot of the people on city council have done this when there was no stipends, like, but they
Sure.
I'm kind of thinking the $50 per meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Some sort of accountability to show up, be online.
Okay, so, I will entertain a motion from the committee members to approve the dollar amount as allocated at the 8,400, but with the recommendation to make it a $50 per meeting.
Which ends up being the same. on
Yes.
It could be a little bit more.
So plus or minus, yeah.
Based on the number.
I do not think we would need a higher allocation due to a couple of the council members who declined the stipend altogether. That would give the ability for us to fund everybody without being short.
Can I ask Hayden why you don't want to take the stipend? I can't participate. Oh, okay.
I'd love to.
Well, okay.
Call me after.
All right. I make a motion that we make a $50 stipend for each meeting for the city council.
We have to approve it line item at $8,400 with the recommendation.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's inevitable too that sometimes if someone's absent, there's illnesses, there's vacations, there's stuff. So even, and like Melissa said, some won't take it. So that accounts as if it were $100 times 7 times 12, and that number is probably gonna be slightly lower, even if we had a 24th or 25th or 26th meeting in the year. It's probably still sufficient.
Okay, so Denise, I think your motion is good if we can just add with a total allocation of 8,400.
With a total allocation of $8,400.
I second.
And then Nancy, do you want to do a committee roll call? on
Yep,
that?
waiting for chair.
You can't
Is it
participate in the
like-
conversation, so staff is leading the discussion.
He can still.
Head
do the roll
22
call.
once again.
Counselor Wheeler.
Abstain.
Counselor McLean.
Abstain.
Thank-
Yep.
Counselor Duffloff.
Abstain.
Counselor McMillan.
Abstain.
Committee member Cotterill. Committee member Barrera.
Aye.
Committee member Simmons. Committee member Cahill. Committee member Pratt. Committee member Osorio.
Aye.
Committee member Chavez. Mayor Sipe.
Yeah, I spoke for her, which I shouldn't do, so she needs to do her own vote.
Counselor Wheeler.
Abstain.
Thank you, ma'am.
All right, Counselor, stand back on. The next conflict I think that we had was, Parks and Recreation personnel. And so that is page 36 of your packet. Welcome to have any discussion. If there's no discussion on Parks and Recreation personnel service allocation, we can take a motion to approve Parks and Recreation personnel services at a total, which that allocation is $1,502,671.
Do you increase the FTE?
Not full-time, there was increased allocation for rec aid hours. And then we had mid-year conversion of last year of a recreation coordinator to a recreation manager, which makes that budget look a little bit higher.
I was looking at you like the overtime numbers staying the same, or you're not expecting it to go up.
Say that again?
There's no overtime increases, stay the same.
We didn't anticipate an increase because we don't project them using the full overtime budget this year.
Any further questions? I would, entertain a motion for, approval of Parks and Recreation,
Personnel.
personnel.
I, is I motion to, approve the Parks and Rec personnel services for fiscal year 2025. For $1,502,671.
Right, second,
I'll second.
the motion, roll call. please.
Counselor Wheeler.
Aye.
Counselor McLean.
Aye.
Counselor Duffloff,
Aye.
Counselor McMillan,
Do I abstain from this because of the conflict? I'll abstain.
Committee Member Cotterill, Committee Member Barrera,
Aye.
Committee Member Simmons, Committee Member Cahill, Committee Member Pratt,
Aye.
Committee Member Osorio,
Aye.
Committee Member Chavez. Mayor Site.
Yeah, I want to keep you guys on the same page there. I think the other conflict we heard was in recreation materials and services, particularly potential for rec programs. And so I will this budget and then going on to the next page deals with the operations of parks maintenance and recreation services. So if there's any questions regarding any of those line items, either on the duration of page 36 or page 37, I'm happy to facilitate any discussion there, and we'll take a motion to approve the parks and recreation materials and services.
So would this also be a potential for me?
Yes.
Okay, that's kind of what I thought.
We had a drastic increase in engineering. We didn't know the parks engineering.
Yeah, so the decrease, because we're past conceptual or going past conceptual design for Hash Park, that design funding has moved into capital reserve and transitioned into that capital projects phase where all of this engineering will be part of the capitalized construction cost. And so there is a transfer rather than showing up in the general fund. There's a transfer from general fund to capital reserve to account for that.
What about the community garden? Has that been, I see it was in the budget last year. And this year, where is that located?
On page 37, line item 2.
It's not yet. It hasn't been completed yet, so we rolled the funding forward for it to be completed next year.
Where's it planned for?
I don't know that we've created determined a final location.
That's been part of the major issue is identifying the proper location in the land for it.
Yeah, we've got budgets.
We were proposing to do it in the next fiscal year, not the current year, and so those funds would roll forward and we allocated the same amount to do it next
So-
year.
Yeah, it's my understanding that we just roll it forward every
If we
year.
can find a location for it this summer, it'll be something we can start to tackle, so we want the money available.
And I know as well that our Parks and Rec director is on the line as well. That's something that she is working with the Parks and Recreation Committee on.
I'm sorry?
We talked about where it was physically on.
Where it was physically.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I
It's on line item 6.
I could have told her that.
I'll take the community towards my backyard.
Any other questions or comments on the Parks and Recreation Materials and Services budget?
Maintenance. Is that for an increase by $10,000? Is that a inflationary increase?
Yes, and there's also some planned maintenance at, is it one of the baseball fields, replacing some red rock? I think that.
When we did the Ash Park, stuff fill out for the softball field, there's some money. That's, it was improvement.
And that's where the high school's playing now, right?
Or they're practicing that, yeah.
Practice.
Yeah. Did you want a dollar amount from me?
Yes,
590,700.
Any further discussion? I would take a motion to approve Parks and Recreation Material Service for $590,700.
I motion, I change my motion, that we approve the materials and services for the Parks and Rec Department for $590,700.
Have a motion, for a second,
I'll second it.
and a second, roll call please.
Counselor Wheeler.
Aye.
Counselor McLean.
Aye.
Counselor Duffloff.
Aye.
Counselor McMillan.
Will I have a potential on this one too? No.
It's just
Okay.
materials and
Just
services.
materials. Aye.
Committee Member Cotterall. Committee Member Barrera.
Aye.
Committee Member Simmons. Committee Member Cahill. Committee Member Pratt.
Aye.
Committee Member Osorio.
Aye.
Committee Member Chavez. Mayor Sype.
Okay, I believe the only other conflict that I heard was in the transient room tax fund in regards to Rock the Locks and Landing Days Festival, so if.
Police personnel.
Oh, police personnel, okay.
Police personnel. Yep.
Let's do police personnel first.
Fine.
I think that'll be. I will get there. Hold
Now, would that be an
on.
actual?
Page 40.
That's an actual.
Yep. So mum's the word.
What page is it?
Page 40.
40. Thank you.
Those are different.
Right from the page.
Okay, gotcha.
We did have an increase.
We did have an increase in FTE, which is why we had a corresponding increase in projected overtime.
So overtime earnings went up because of the FTE, I'm assuming, or is it just for?
No, but as we usually grow in staff, we just allocate potential in extra.
That's usually what catches up to us, then we can show that we need that another FTE because the overtime hours are so long.
In all reality, there's the increase FTE to the police station are not in patrol officers. We did get our COPS grant this year that allowed us to hire an additional officer. Typically, if we would hire more officers, then you could potentially see a decrease in overtime because you'd have more officers to patrol, but where we're dealing with a victim advocate and evidence technician, that's not something that would take away.
The cops, it's a federal.
Yes.
About that at all? Do we have to overcome that with people funding?
So we did that as, the grant, it's incremental. So the first year it covers a dollar amount, second year a little less, the third year a little less. And so the idea there is to provide the city opportunity to, as our budget will grow, it can offset some of their reduction in federal funding. It's a 5-year grant. We can spend it anyway we like during that time, but there's maximums each of those 3 years. And so we're running it that way.
Okay, so what year are we?
Year one, we're just starting. The Q4 of 2024 was our first eligible quarter. The officer was hired at the end of that quarter, so we didn't actually have any payroll. So 2025 is what starts that. When all of the federal freezes, if that's where you're getting to, came out, they did just temporarily stop it, but they fully opened it back up, let us continue on our portal and don't anticipate any future shutdown.
You have enough budget? to do so?
If they did, we could pull it from operating contingency. Half of the FTE is within our contingency.
I have a question. Where were we with the dispatching fees conversation? Is that here? Is this a part of this or is that so we're done with?
So it's listed under police materials and services. And so we'll wrap up personnel and
Yep.
then I'll jump to
Okay,
that.
yeah, thank you. That's all right.
Any further discussion about police, personnel services? I would take a motion to approve police, personnel services for $3,160,358.
I make a motion to approve $3,160,358 for police personnel services.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
I second.
Roll call, please.
Counselor Wheeler.
Aye.
Counselor McLean.
Aye.
Counselor Duffloff.
Abstain.
Counselor McMillan.
Aye.
Committee Member Cotterell. Committee Member Barrera.
Aye.
Committee Member Simmons. Committee Member Cahill. Committee Member Pratt.
Aye.
Committee Member Osorio,
Aye.
Committee Member Chavez, Mayor Sype.
Yeah, or we can go in order. Yeah, doesn't have to be first.
It doesn't have to be a huge order after we get all these done, then we can kind of open it up for questions and comments. This is unique, we don't have to usually jump down. Transient room tax budget, is found on page 67 and 68. And I think, we probably can take that fund as a whole. Because I think that there's revenue and expense implications on there.
It's 67.
Yeah, 67 and 68. I did receive, a question about whether or not we did include a portion of funds for, Rock the Locks as 2026. I felt that at our last budget workshop, I didn't get a ton of clear direction on whether the council and committee wanted me to include it. I deferred to the presentation that Jensen Strategy provided city council back on March 4th, where they talked about two different tracks, a budget track and a policy decision-making track. And I went with their recommendation to include a portion of the 26 budget. The reason that I did this is because if we include it, the funds are there, but there is nothing to preclude city council from reappropriating those funds if the festival is to get canceled past 2025. So I went with the recommendations of our consultants, not having much other direction.
Can I get you this
So
week into
just
my-
to clarify, it's 2,974,000. That's if it's held in 2026.
So each annual budget contains a portion of each year's festival because we would complete the 2025 festival, but before the next fiscal year ended, we would need to be making deposits on entertainment. And so regardless, probably about 65% of this budget would go towards 2025's event, with approximately 35% of it going towards the following fiscal year. And so no matter what, we would expend a portion. And then after the 2025 event, if 2026 was not going to happen, then we could reappropriate those funds. City council would pass a budget amendment resolution to reappropriate those funds elsewhere.
They could pass the same thing to add it in. If it was taken out, they could do the same thing to put it back in.
If there was, I gotta look at our general fund total. I don't believe that they could allocate an operating contingency high enough to do that. So with operating contingencies, those are the funds that they could access in a given year if they need to. An operating contingency can only be a total of 15% of any given fund. Our past practice in case of emergencies or any major changes has been to allocate between $1 million and $1.5 million to the general fund operating contingency. This festival being a $3 million expense, the maximum that we can allocate to the general fund is 3.15 million. And so we wouldn't be able to allocate our regular general fund and the full Rock the Locks budget.
What was our total losses from the 2024 event? Like what was our final number? It's the Jensen Strategy, not just strategies, the group, 1.2, 1.5, is
I think 1.2.
I think it was 1.2 in year one and 1.1 last year.
Okay, so
Proposed for 2025 is 900,000.
So we, our proposed loss is 50,000. Is what
Say that again.
our proposed loss is 900,000.
For this year, for 2025.
Yes.
And is there the proposed loss for 2026 according to, well, it's not totally in here.
No.
Gotcha.
And so that's my question. If we continue to lose, and that is a significant loss. I mean, we talked about it, the golf course, long-term losses, things. And to some it's considered a public nuisance, and others, you know, that conversion of other comments, a huge gain. I think it's a tough balancing act.
It is. Since tomorrow is going to be all about Rock the Locks, does it make more sense for the budget committee to spend their time on that tomorrow? And put a pause on that?
So the budget committee can't meet again tomorrow. There's specific public notice requirements that we have to make. And then council won't be making a decision regardless until July 15th. So we do have the chicken and the egg situation going on here. With the budget allocation.
It's funny you bring it up, because that's exactly what I was thinking. We have so much public comment coming out. I mean, for us to make an educated guess, you know, there's so many people that are supportive and so many people that are opposed it. And I personally, to make an educated guess on things, I would like to have more information.
And I agree.
All of it away from my phone.
I give my 2 cents.
Yeah, I hear people. So like my question is, and Denise, I want to go back to something you said last time because it stuck with me. And that was, are we looking in the future to make this profitable, right? And that's what I wanted. And I don't know if that can be provided to me tonight, as far as like forecasting goes and the ultimate goal of the council, and for those of you that were involved in the early process of bringing Rock the Locks. And I agree, right? If the mindset of the council and everybody here is, this is going to be profitable down the road. This is eventually going to pay dividends, right? Outside of just quality of life. So like, I kind of want to just hear a little bit about it.
So let me kind of my perspective working with Department of Corrections. Okay, you can't make money. Municipality, we can't technically make money per se, from what I understand. So with that in mind, you know, I think we're at a point you have to mitigate your loss. So you get to a certain point is how much is benefiting the community, how much is benefiting other things. So I think with that forethought in mind, that's kind of where I'm at. If we can mitigate that loss and get that to a zero, a net loss of zero, I don't know of any study that's actually in the black and making money. So it's not really the perspective of things.
Would you say the goal is to mitigate the loss? Like the goal is to
Oh, yeah.
mitigate the loss to zero?
Yeah.
Like, is there people like, is that what?
That's feasible. Is it possible? No, probably not, because of the varying of circumstances. I get it, but I honestly think we can get to a place to where we're at, instead of a 40% loss or whatever it would be. If we can get it to a 10% loss, obviously that's mitigated better. That's kind of my thought of things.
So that's the public engagement activity that we're going through now, and that's why the consultants suggested that you can adopt that budget for 25, and if it were to be the policy decision in July is to take it to 26 or beyond, then there's budget for it. If the policy decision is that it's not, then we could come with a supplemental budget and you could reappropriate those funds however the council felt was the most appropriate way to reappropriate those funds. Some of that public engagement is to get, the question is asking the community, where do they feel that level of threshold is, sort of in the 360 view of what the event is. They're asking that exact question. Is it appropriate to make a profit, 1-to-1 recovery, 50%, 25%, whatever that number might look like? And so we anticipate having results from that input from the community of where they think that would be, and the council will get to consider where those sort of cards fell and determine That plus how they want to fiscally manage the budget overall. So I think that as many people as there are, there's probably equally as many opinions as to what that threshold will be. We'll see whether there may or may not be some kind of consensus from that result of the survey.
Did I ask you a question for you?
I don't know. I can't tell. Is it on?
No, it's not.
Oh.
Because I asked your question for you, that's my biggest concern with profit loss is that, so 3 years ago, the idea was we're gonna do $1 million the first year, $500,000 the second year, by year 3 we're breaking even. But year 3 we're budgeting, so there's $1 million. So that's, I'm actually a part of a unique third group. I'm not opposed to profit loss. I'm just opposed to us planning to spend $1 million next year. So,
Yeah, and one unique factor that's come into place since we originally started planning was just to Mia's point, the unique nature of sound mitigation and the capital expense, and that has really been the one large expense that is hindering the cost recovery until we can come to whatever that acceptable place is. It's hundreds of thousands a year up to this point in sound mitigation, and so we haven't been able to recognize the cost recovery that we first anticipated as quickly.
Yeah, I mean, it's still-
Yeah.
It's not huge.
So if you take the sound mitigation away, we're almost even.
There'll always be some expense.
But there's always gonna be an expense.
But I mean. Close to us 3 years ago, that's what it was, $1.5 million, 250,000, and that's exactly the issue, that it is then. And then a net gain, net loss by a significant percentage every year, that's $1 million. I mean, this is $3 million that could be used in so many different ways, for so many resources.
Well, not 3 million. It would just be that you would take away the revenue and you would take away the expense, so it would just be the difference.
Okay, so the difference, that's still $1 million. That's still,
yeah,
lighting parks, that's still, you know, getting. You know,
But
better
how much,
mowers and everything.
so the other part is how much is coming back to the community.
I don't know, I've heard.
And we have a study coming in that should be here in the next few weeks, right?
And how much is the study?
So Eco Northwest is doing the study, which is the same group that I mentioned that did that economic study for League of Oregon Cities in my proposed message. It's an NTE and not to exceed of 15,000. We've got our first invoice, I think it was just over 5,000 for that. But yeah, to that exact point, the economic impact data that's been presented to date has been substantially questioned. And so we're trying to say, okay, Eco Northwest is really the authority on economic impact in the state, actually Pacific Northwest, not just Oregon, but in Washington and Idaho as well. And so they're running that study. We'll have the results of their report and we'll be able to look at that. I mean, yes, they're getting paid, but they're not interested third party. They're going to do their analysis and provide what that impact will be. We just don't know what that is yet.
And is that coming out of this budget or is it?
No, that'll be spent before the end of this fiscal year, so it's not in the proposed budget.
Is it in, where's it from? Is it in the Lots and Lots budget or is it?
In the current year, Chocolate Box budget.
Yeah.
I have a quick question. I don't want to take too much time with it, but is there a reason that it was a temporary facility plan and as opposed to a permanent type of music facility that could be used more than just 3 days and by a variety of people?
Yeah, so the first round of council goals from 19 to 21 was to find a facility to be able to accommodate large events like music festivals. We were not successful in finding anything that met the criteria to do that. An event that can hold at least 8,000 people needs to have at least 30 acres available to do that. And then in 2020, we purchased a point of diversion. It came with the golf course, which is how part of how the city came of the golf course. And so now that we had a new 120 acre facility that was there, attention was moved to say, well, we have this facility that's available and in our inventory that we took out a loan to purchase. Rather than purchase another facility, we could use this. And so that was proposed in the 23 goals to use it for that. And those goals have been improved each time since then. So that's why we've been using it as a festival.
It just seems that if it had been moved over. I'm sorry, it just seems like if it had been moved over to where the parking lot is, it wouldn't have caused the same sound mitigation issues. And then it could have been left up all the time. That's
are you
what-
talking
it's
about-
water under the bridge now, and I apologize for that.
Denise, are you talking about off Bud Draper?
Yeah, I think for me, yeah, I understand, like, I think for me, it was more of a, what is the, not necessarily the public input as much as it is like the people at the table, as far as like, hey, is the goal to mitigate the cost as much as possible and to always be looking at ways to mitigate that, right? And not to say like, well, we're happy with what we're doing and we're gonna, as long as we keep voting on it and we improve it, we're gonna keep doing it. But more to say, are the people at the table, you know, obviously we're aware of the cost, but are we proactively saying, these are the slight improvements that we made here, there. Sounds like we got people on a study that are looking at that and talking about economic growth and the impact of the community. I see all that, and I don't want to take that away from people. But it was more so like, are we here, including us on the budget committee, looking at this and saying, hey, it's $1.9 million or 900,000 next year. Is the following year going to be closer to 700? Is it going to be closer to 500? Are we looking at, and then when do we get to that number that's like, hey, that's the number we're gonna have to, right? In consideration of all the things that come into the community. And so that was where my question at, more to just get a gauge of like, hey, I'm okay putting a number in the budget that can be decided by you guys later that are doing the work and allocating those funds wherever they need to be based on the decision in July. Just so I felt comfortable enough saying, okay, yeah, let's leave it in there. And then I trust that based on what I heard tonight, that you guys are looking at.
And so I can tell you, I am not satisfied with a loss like that. I'm looking for constant improvement. I'm really looking forward to seeing from the consultant. I think it's been brought up and it's like, well, part of this, unfortunately, the city of Umatilla is not going to benefit from all of the ancillary additions that come from the Rock the Locks event. But we have to look at that in some way. We need to look at that as an opportunity for growth and for directing what we need to try to attract to the city. I can absolutely commit, I'm not satisfied with this kind of loss. We need to improve it or we need to move on.
Yeah. I second what Bruce is saying to the point where I think it honestly should be private. No private business would come in and get a $900,000 loss year after year and lose almost $3 million in a 3-year time span in any. So why in the world would we continue that? To be honest, it should be towards private business.
I don't got any.
Yeah, so the survey for Rock the Locks, the last day to take it is April 28th. So you have just before midnight, 11:59 on April 28th to complete the survey. Eco Northwest will provide their initial draft or preliminary draft of their economic impact findings not until the second week of May. They'll have that work done. The consultants, Jensen Strategies, will take a compilation of the neighborhood group meeting and their survey, and then the meeting, the townhouse meeting tomorrow night, and the associated survey the 28th. And then they're going to gather their information during the month of May and put together a report. City council meets at whatever the third Tuesday in June will be the first discussion item. We'll have both of those reports for you in June with no vote in June, and then we will take whatever final questions or direction that want to be answered from the council in June and gather those and bring those back at that July meeting for policy vote.
Because this won't be approved until July, could this item or this section be tabled and then have another budget meeting like next month?
No, we have to approve next year's budget prior to July 1st. And so we wouldn't be able to hold on this. There needs to be a decision made one way or another. And I know this is a pretty polarizing topic. Even if all survey results say Rocklocks is great, if we can't make up that financial, there may be a point where just me sitting in this chair, I come and say, guys, this isn't sustainable. And so I do want to acknowledge the staff recognizes how much is going into this and what it looks like. And so I think because there's so many differing points, it may be worth somebody making a motion of what they feel like we should do.
The city council is.
If the budget?
Yeah.
If we get to an approved budget tonight, then they will approve it at their first June meeting. If we do not get an approval tonight, then they will not be able to approve until June 17th.
Because if budget committee met like next month, then they could approve it in June.
Well, the budget committee, the next date that we had that we published that we would meet would be May 27th. That doesn't give me enough time to notice the LB1 in the paper before the meeting for June 3rd. So it would still be June 17th.
I think some of it is, we also have to look at not only the economic impact of the city and our region, but we also have to look at imaging also. We have to look at people coming here and seeing our city and enjoying our city for what it is, instead of us being a bedroom community for years and years of Hermiston, us being the closet of Umatilla County for years and years and years. And I think we're at a place now where our city is very recognized in our area as one of the third largest cities in our county, which is fantastic. We have a level of respect when we sit at a table, I feel, that we didn't maybe have a few years ago. And I truly see that Ernest is shifting, not only because of events and stuff like that, but I also see it because of all the downtown work that we've done. You drive down the city, it looks great at night. All the things, these little things that we've done to make an impact on our image is insurmountable. It truly does make a difference. Now, is it worth $9 million losing? No, by any means, by any stretch. I'm not, and I'm a business person. I don't want to lose money either. But at the end of the day, you know, I think that if we have a plan that we can work through and a strategy, you know, maybe we look at different things in the future of, do we have to go 3 days? Maybe we go 2 days. Maybe we do parts of this and parts of it. There's so much variable to it that we can change to mitigate this $9 million or this $900,000. You know, I mean, we haven't even started trimming the fat yet, per se.
So close to Roundup. When the date got changed, so I'm curious to see how it does this year.
Yeah, I agree with you. The feedback that I've got is people are excited about it, to be honest with you, because it's still in September, but we'll see. And again, I think it's kind of one of those things we have to see what it does and then pivot from there and have an open mind. That's kind of where I'm at.
So I just wanted to say, well, first of all, I just wanted to recognize you because I know you get like all my dumb questions, probably a lot more too, but so I know you get all the people. But like for me, you know, I'm thinking like, okay, so looking at this, you know, what are possible solutions? And obviously one solution would be, let's make this a true event for the community. Open it up to people, you know, have music for that represents the demographics of our community, something for everybody, but obviously that blows the budget. It's not impossible. So then the other option would be, what are other funding sources that we could look at, and are we able to do some research and study and say, okay, the businesses are benefiting from this, so what does it take for the business to fund this, so we can keep it going and our community can enjoy it and we can get all the benefits from that, but we're not, like as the city, taking this money that we could be spending on other things and using it for that.
Yeah, I think it goes back to that point of, you know, a couple weeks ago I talked about it in front. Leaving it open as an open contract, if someone wants to come in and fulfill that, we have the facilities ready to go. If someone wants to actually do that, then that's on them. But you know, I'm just not sure that any municipality's job is to put on a 3-day rock concert. I think honestly, I think it's misuse of funds. I think I disagree.
We have that specific question in the survey. We're asking our community members that exact thing.
I'd like to leave it to, the people that are gonna come to the forums and speak, for the community. I think as a budget committee member, I'd like to leave it to them. I say, let's leave it in a line, let's leave a line item in there. Leave it up to the community to show up, voice their concerns, and ultimately leave it on the hands of the people that are at the table that are going to make that decision based on that feedback, which is gonna be important. So I'm gonna make a motion to approve materials and services total of $353,521,510.
Okay, can I have you just approve the transient room tax budget as a whole?
Yep,
The
the
three-
transient, room tax fund total of $3,758,221. And then let's see where it goes.
I'll second.
You have a motion in a second, roll call please.
Counselor Wheeler,
Aye.
Counselor McLean,
Aye.
Counselor Duffloff,
Aye.
Counselor McMillan,
Aye.
No, I don't have an actual. I have a potential.
Committee Member Cotterill, Committee Member Barrera,
Aye.
Committee Member Simmons,
Aye.
Committee Member Cahill, Committee Member Pratt,
Opposed.
Committee Member Osorio,
Aye.
Committee Member Chavez, Mayor Sipe.
Okay, I think that was all of our conflict issues. I am gonna go back and talk about dispatch for a minute, and then we'll just open the floor up to questions about anything, anywhere. We don't usually go, huh?
We're in this, about 2 hours,
Yeah.
we take a break. 5-minute break.
You're the chair.
Need a motion,
Make a, you need a motion.
need a motion.
I make a motion, we take a 10-minute break.
I'll third that motion then, by golly.
Committee Member,
We have to.
Yep. Yep.
Roll call.
Counselor Wheeler.
Aye.
Counselor McLean.
Aye.
Counselor Duffloff,
Aye.
Counselor McMillan,
Aye.
Committee Member Cotterill, Committee Member Barrera,
Aye.
Committee Member Simmons, Committee Member Cahill, Committee Member Pratt, Committee Member Osorio,
Aye.
Committee Member Chavez, Mayor Sipe. 10-minute recess. We will commence at 8:13.
Propose an amendment to the.
Charlie.
We're gonna wait.
So let's get back over to this here. I'm just gonna apologize to the people, online. I've been trying to watch in case you stick your hand up for something and I know Nancy has been. So, okay, Melissa.
Yeah, so I'm gonna jump back in and quickly address that dispatch question. So since we last met in our workshop, the dispatch is on page 41. Second line from the top. So we did have correspondence sent with Umatilla County. They sent us over a contract for the current fiscal year that will be going before city council, and did amend the amount of that contract to the 176,810 that we budgeted without much pushback. In the conversations back and forth, we reminded them of the $20,000 increase, and again, didn't get pushback. So we allocated the lower amount that we talked about at the workshop for next year, the 196,810. So just that $20,000 increase, and that's how we plan on proceeding.
Gotcha.
And then at this point, I have provided you all via email the list of anything that we did not fund since our last workshop. I also sent you reserve balances, FTE counts, and we pretty much went in detail about the individual requests. So I would like to kind of open it up to any committee members' questions or discussion on any certain area of the budget that you may want to have. Yeah. We can take the rest as a whole. We don't have any more.
Can I start?
Sure.
I'll start with a couple of lower ticket items. I saw a lot of things being purchased that I think are high costs to them. E-trikes for $6,600 for 2 of them. You can buy e-trikes for $1,500, good ones. Maybe not ones with the big beefy tires, but I think that's a high amount. 40-foot shipping containers, $10,000. You can buy nice ones used online for $1,750 to $3,500. And those are a couple of things that I know about because I bought it. Well, we've been looking for an e-trike. And I bought 40-foot shipping containers, so you can buy decent ones for less money. It doesn't have to be new. And I think there's several things in there. It's a, you know, a couple $1,000s here and a couple $1,000s there. But I saw it in the budget, many different places, and I just want to bring that up as a consideration.
While I don't disagree with you, a lot of times buying new in a municipality, it's difficult to buy used because of liability. You don't know what you're buying at that sector. So there's times that you put yourself in a bad position.
Also has to do with.
Correct.
Can't just go out. I mean, there's certain things that we can buy at auction. There's certain things that we can do. The unfortunate part is that the state procurement laws prohibit us from buying a lot of used different things that have been used. So that's where it comes into play. Also, we buy things off there's different accounts. It's called Sourcewell or Orpin or different kinds of accounts that the state has where we go in and we research these things. And so a lot of the items that we want to buy aren't on that Sourcewell account. So therefore we have to go out to public bid on all of it. You start adding up the public bid time and all the things that go along with that, it starts adding up the costs. And then obviously we do this on a yearly basis. And so there is a lot of thought and a lot of consideration and a lot of phone calls that go into each and every item that we look at. I'm not going to say that there isn't cheaper ways to do it. What I'm saying is that the law prohibits us from doing some of those things.
And the bike thing, are you talking about the one for the police department?
No.
Okay.
I think for the marina.
For the marina, gotcha.
Now, I had a question on page 30. Page 32, community support and commitments. What is that $600,000?
Let me get rid- That is the Port of Umatilla contribution that the council committed to. If you remember, they gave us $2 million in road funds and we are paying them back 1.8 million over 3 years.
Right.
In community support.
Did we do something with the downtown revitalization grant?
So, it's a little confusing because it shows up in both administration and community development.
Right.
The allocation is now in community development and has been for a few years, so that's gonna be found on page 33. We recommended an increase from downtown revitalization from 100,000 to 150,000. And for the new business grant program, from 150,000 to 250,000.
Right. I noticed we've had quite a bit of interest in those. That's fantastic.
Yes, we did.
I think we have 6 pending applicants who are waiting because we've expended all the funds for this year.
That's awesome.
So if everybody can hear me and everybody online, I think we have 6 applicants that are waiting for the funding to open, assuming that the budget committee and city council allocate additional funds.
That's amazing. I love that.
Brendan, what would the, if we have, what was the additional request amount that we were unable to fund?
I'm not the number person off the top of my head, but I think all of them would be max award. So we have 6 that were pending and they're all the
120.
500, so
159.
59,000. I know one thing Dave and I have talked through is because we're seeing so much interest in that grant program, we might have to look at updating some of those rules and policies to make sure that we are allocating them quarterly, to make sure we have funds to spread out over the entire year.
Yep.
And we'll also probably have to move to a little bit more competitive scoring. Just with the amount of interest, even if increased funding, we're probably gonna have to do some sort of reduced funding or maybe possibly have to start seeing more people.
Well, and I think that's initially how the county did theirs. They had to go through the grant process first. And then they narrowed it down to where they can only do so much per quarter. And they also lowered their allocations as well. So it's not, that's not without reason.
Yeah, I mean, I look at it as a good problem to have. I mean, there's.
100.
In the program, it's just, we might have to look at how we're allocating those funds and how we're awarding them, just because we are seeing such a high level of interest. We probably need to look at moving to a quarterly award. And then probably having a little bit better scoring criteria so council can make better informed decisions. But we've been in a very fortunate position so far. I think we've been able to fund just about every request that has come in. This has really been the first year where we've just seen an overwhelming amount of grants come in all at the same time.
Do you have a committee that decides?
So all of those staff reviews them and put together the scoring criteria, and from the city council for ultimate approval. There's not a separate committee to bring those to the city council. So that's something that here over the next month or two, we would probably look to bring the city council to update those policies in the application form. So moving into July, when we can start taking applications, and again, we have clear delineated scoring criteria. So those are on the application form, so people know. And then council gets the final say on who gets those awards.
So I've got a question. This one is just kind of blanket.
I'm seeing a large number, it seems odd, just for uniform allowances across the board. Like look at like $6,200 for the golf courses. What is $6,000? What are we going to do? $6,000, how many staff members? This is page 44, from the bottom 10, maybe 10 or 9 more.
So I don't know if many people know, we recently switched over to mandatory uniforms at the golf course. They're all wearing golf course apparel. And so each employee would have an annual allowance, but this initial allowance is higher to account for that change.
So what do you wear?
You can wear khaki pants, polo shirts, and then we have, they'll be able to wear polo shorts as long as they're not doing something that jeopardizes the OSHA stuff, and then they'll have coveralls for that specific thing. It's so that they can be recognized on the course a lot, and it kind of dresses things up. We do have allowances in each one of the line items for public works too, of $350, and that's basically so guys can go get themselves new boots, and that's covered in our bargaining agreement with.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's me. How many staff members do you have?
We do have, from some seasonals, but I think, what do we have, 9?
10, yeah.
And I think it's an initial cost of buying enough uniforms for the week. And then as the years go by, they'll upgrade, what we need. That initial cost, I think, is
The initial cost over 2 years, so looking over.
Well, we didn't implement at the beginning of the year, so we're not gonna spend the full 6,000 this year. They just
Okay.
got going. And then every year we do have new seasonals employees, so they would start with no uniforms.
Yeah, I know that uniforms. Expensive.
And then on course the golf course, I noticed we had a decrease by almost $3,000 for the buildings. Do things get better magically? Or are we still expecting further maintenance fees?
So last year's maintenance budget included renovations to the banquet room, and those have been completed, and so those won't be reflected in the first month, yeah.
Why the big spike in electricity use at the golf course?
Well, one is that we started.
Where's the line?
We purchased electric golf carts, so that may add some of it to the stuff. We did update some electrical equipment out there as well, so I'm not sure if it's just the usage for the electrical. I have to look into what we
It's a
did.
combination of that, and we saw electric rates throughout the budget have increased. Pacific Power did a pretty substantial rate increase, and so I'm seeing that across the board.
Big pumps, a lot of power.
And we also went to automated sprinklers, right?
Yeah, but they're on a 9-volt battery system, so they don't take off the grid.
I like it.
What about the full-time city attorney?
That is included.
Yeah, it was included, and I know you show a decrease of 75,000.
What's the line on that? Where's that? Sorry.
So the city attorney is included in personnel services for administration. That's not the only increase to administration, but I'll figure it out, yeah. Hold on 1 second. 31.
I think was the savings, how much it was gonna cost us for outsourcing?
Yeah,
It was
it's huge.
Partially offset.
Partially.
Yeah, partially offset it by.
Yeah.
I understand that. I guess my question is this city attorney, do you have somebody in mind already? And is this city attorney well-versed in the variety of things that they'll need to be knowledgeable in? Or are they still going to have to go to the specialized attorneys for the various items?
So we
Does
anticipate.
that make sense?
Yeah, we
Okay.
anticipate specialized attorneys still being needed in some circumstances, for example, with water right issues, or we've needed specialized marine attorneys if we've had boats sink in the marina that require specialized attorneys. For this position specifically, we would contract with a recruiting firm to hire a city attorney. And the job description would reflect the full breadth of knowledge that we would expect them to have.
So is that the FTE? Is it $100,000 total? Because I see 25, 26. Or is that, we had a budget last year as well?
No, so if we hire a attorney, it would be included in personnel services. What we had allocated under administration for attorney, I can tell you we are over. That is one thing that will be coming through the supplemental budget. There's no way that we kept our admin legal to 50,000 this year. And so, but I left that at 50,000 next year, although it's much lower than what we actually spent this year. And in some of the other departments, such as community development, we reduced the proposed allocation from 30,000 down to 10,000. The court ones, we reduced from 2,000 down to 0. That could be something that can be handled completely in-house. I believe we left the marina attorney fees there in case that specialized need was there. And then I did some similar decreases throughout the other funds for their legal services to account for what should be able to be done.
And that equals 75,000 less overall.
It's actually, I think, more than that, less, a bigger reduction than that. For water, we went from 125 to 50, so that's $75,000 just in that one area. So once we looked at all of the specific attorneys, we found actually more reduction than that.
So what is Umatilla promotion and what is Umatilla merchandise? For $20,000 each, what are merchandise?
So we have a lot of requests for city apparel, and if you've gone to, one thing that we're looking at doing, like for the city of Hermiston, they have different city merchandise clothing, they have a display rack, and you can go purchase sweatshirts or shirts throughout the year there. That's something that we're looking at doing here at City Hall. Hats, shirts, whatever we wanted to be able to sell, if people wanted to wear them.
How am I able to tell city staff when that we have logos and see, like, I'm gonna get Dave's really fantastic polo to see.
No, I mean, we wouldn't offer 100% of everything that staff has. It would be a select.
Like a lot of
selection.
stuff says Public Works on it, we have Parks Department and that kind of stuff.
This is the
That
old
would
one.
be-
Yeah, yours is an old one. That's like the original.
This is
polo
like
sign.
6, 7 years old
the
now.
OG.
Yeah, I'm so concerned
Go
about-
ahead.
Are you expected to make like, new off of this, like,
So in year one, we wouldn't, because the cost of purchasing the inventory, you wouldn't sell 100% of your inventory. You would, I mean, the initial upfront cost of starting something new like that would be higher than what you would resell.
is that something true, like? Why? Like, I'm just confused, like, I mean, like, why would we spend? It doesn't make, I just don't understand it.
We wouldn't carry, I mean, ultimately, nothing that we would have would be at a loss. We would sell it for more than what we purchased it for. It's just that, you know, we would carry an inventory cost, and that's why you see that.
So what's the promotion?
Promotion is more sponsorships. So like the city was one of the sponsors for the Fish in the Brave event. We were a sponsor of this past weekend, the Umatilla Booster auction. So that's where the,
Alliance.
yeah.
and Stuff like that.
So we are not funding new golf carts.
We are not, we had a operational change since we last met. The company that we were renting our extra carts for tournaments is no longer renting carts. And so we are, rather than renting, using those rental dollars to purchase used carts from them. And so we're doing that in the current fiscal year. And so we are not making the purchase for the other carts. in this
I
fiscal
do
year.
know that several people have complained that they get up there and there's no carts available.
Yes.
So
And that it would be drastic this year because our rental carts for tournaments and all that stuff are gonna go away. That's why we had to purchase the used carts from that company.
yeah,
Because they can't get insurance in order to
Right.
rent it to us.
right, right.
So,
And how many were you able to purchase?
what do we end up?
It was either 18 or 20, yeah.
Yeah. I
And
don't
that's
know, I
not
don't,
enough?
Huh?
That's not
No.
enough?
No,
I don't know. what it-
no, if you go down there, there's a lot of times it's crazy.
We purchased 20.
That's what I thought.
20. Thank you.
You're welcome. We received 14 and the rest of the 6 should be here this week.
I have a question on city merchandise, sorry.
You're fine.
2025, we also spent $20,000 on, so is this,
We haven't spent that, that's what we allocated, but
so we're just moving that forward? or-
moving it forward, because the business center's not open yet due to space constraints, we don't really have room back there to put up any sort of display or storage just until the business center's open and some of the staff is moved from City Hall, so no, we haven't spent that.
There's a lot of people on like during Rock the Locks and during landing days and stuff like that, they'll buy Umatilla.
Can I just remind you guys to use the microphones, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. So my comment is, I believe that when people come to town and visit, if they had if they had a place, even if we had it at the Chamber of Commerce and set up something down there, people would buy Umatilla.
And I think like letter buck is probably different though.
Well,
I mean, like, you know what I mean, like, what are we?
Hermiston, I see a bunch of people with Hermiston gear on all the time.
We do also.
Get requests for it.
Yeah.
Is the working on the marina, the big projects, are they in this budget?
Yes.
Too. So are there any, are the prices, the costs looking like they're the same as what they were when we talked?
Yes.
At the last month?
Yes.
Okay. Is there any way to mitigate some of those costs? You had talked about, on a variety of different things. I don't remember each one of getting some grants and getting some.
So
additional-
any opportunity that we believe that we have a grant, we do have the budgeted offsetting revenue. The only one that we kind of budgeted worst case scenario on was the Project Path operations, because we don't have any state allocation identified yet. And so hopefully we would be able to get one and we would not need to put in towards the operation of that facility. But the way that we proposed the budget was if the city did need to contribute, as well as the county, city of Hermiston, and our other partners on that facility. So that's one where we are making up funding in the proposed budget, but we do have several other grants identified throughout.
What page was that one on?
Project Path.
Yeah.
So that is an operational one that is on page 33. Says Project Path, 750,000, and then there's offsetting revenue included. I believe it's in the 016175 other revenue line item, which is on page 30.
And then I have a question about that as well. This might be more for Dave.
Denise,
Can I pass that
can you
thing?
hand him the mic, please? Thank you.
This mic is available too.
So this is a question you're more towards Dave. I know the last time we talked Project Path, we were looking fund wise. Are they, once again, this is a concern throughout. Is this still, like, we have a federal issue right now, we're using funds, have they already paid it all back?
We don't have a federal funding issue for PATH. All of our
That's a
funding
state.
have been state, direct appropriations. Most of the funds from that originated from, state payroll taxes.
Fantastic.
In our-
That'll be a problem when the highway bill.
Correct,
You say it.
correct. The highway bill is going to affect it. 100%. Nope. So our partners have already recognized as well. Okay.
Here, Denise, I'll give you this one.
So that brings me to the library fund, I guess, with the extra $15,000. It just, is that enough, I guess, is part of what I'm just wondering if that's enough to do. Because what you had talked about, Dave, was if they had pulled, they haven't pulled it yet, is that correct? The federal funds, and they were going to pull things that were statewide. So that $15,000 is not going to go to fund the Libby app or that type of thing. What will that $15,000 be funded?
Yeah, so as of now, they haven't pulled the funding to Oregon. They had an emergency meeting at the state library level, and just based off of that, they said there's no concerns about the continuation of their catalog system. Memberships fees cover that. Several states did receive notice of termination. Oregon was not one of them. The SAGE system is the courier system that's needed to maintain that. At this point, The current proposal, if that funding were to go away, would be to crowdfund the approximately $80,000 needed to maintain those courier services without interruption for next fiscal year. So basically, if that happens, they may request that the member libraries contribute or try to fundraise to that effort. So about $1,500 per library is what they're thinking are relatively lower cost than what we were looking at. And then if anything, we found out catalogs if we needed to, they have options. Hoopla is a digital one, and she, said that one would probably be a maximum potential cost of about 10,000. Blackstone Audio is another one that would be about 3,000. And so all of those combined are about 15,000. And that's what we put in the allocation is what do we need to bridge that? From what they're hearing now, they don't think that any sort of funding cut would be permanent. It would just be while they work to figure out what those next steps looks like. And so that's why we didn't increase and do a higher allocation just based on the best information that we've got from the state at this time.
I had also heard, and I mentioned this to her too, that the Dolly Parton funds, not from Dolly wasn't pulling them, but there was some federal backing of, I can't remember what that's called, the books that Dolly Parton gives. So I don't know, did she find out anything about that?
She hasn't mentioned that to me.
I've got a quick question here on general fund for the marina and RV proposed budget on page 38. What's our current FTE?
3.8.
What's going into Boyd's place that's such a $25,000 invoice price?
So the biggest expense at Boyd's is probably cleaning services. We have to have the facility cleaned between each stay. We also have utilities that go into it. Any sort of maintenance supplies. It's pretty common that tenants will destroy a bedspread or towels, and so you have several backup sets of all bedding required, and it's laundry, dish soap, normal.
And we rent it out or we rent it out?
I'm sorry?
We're renting it out.
No, it makes.
No, it makes sense.
So then, I guess why are we have to budget it ahead of time that it funds itself?
Yeah, it has to be in, you have to.
So we have
allocate
to
those
budget the
funds.
revenue and the expense.
Yeah, so they're in different lot.
The revenue is budgeted at 40,000, the expense is budgeted at 25.
Question, on that same page, contracted services, went from 474,900, 37,600. Was that money spent, or was there something different proposed?
It's similar to where Hash Park moved into capital reserve, the marina, OSMB, the grant, and the project went into capital reserve as well.
Was that?
So they're doing the phase 1 study, the geotech and cultural for the marina replacement. And the Oregon State Marine Board funded a portion of that project with grant dollars.
Material and service, we talked about that. We just did.
No, we didn't go into full. The only item that we've talked about in materials and services was dispatch.
Thank you.
We're holding back on the RAV4. And the Celebrate, which we're still using Hermiston, right?
Yeah, and
Contractually, we, signed an agreement with them to give them a certain amount of money each year to use that instead
Okay.
of buying it. So.
It saves us, look like $20,000.
So on that same page there, look at officer wellness, that went up by $20,000. What is officer wellness? And is it counseling services? Is it days at the spa? What is it?
so it's a brand new line item that was included, in the last discussion that we had at the workshop. If you want to go into the details on.
We don't currently have a officer wellness program. It entails a application that will be put on our phones for access to peer support. And if they cannot get the peer support they need, then they will go to a clinician. That clinician will then send the police department a bill. The police will be for both families, and the officers.
Is that what Canopy? Is Canopy
No,
part of it?
Canopy's through CIS right now.
Gotcha.
Allow.
Yep. Perfect. I love that.
I guess probably just, yeah. I mean, if it's already CIS service. I would love to-
Canopy doesn't focus on law enforcement trauma.
Right.
They focus on, I'm stressed at work today.
This-
Bills or whatever it is.
Right.
They have a hard time identifying therapists and clinicians that can actually deal with.
First responders.
Canopy is an application through CIS.
Yeah, it's our EAP, our Employee Assistance Program that CIS offers in conjunction with our health insurance benefit.
Yeah.
So, as far as the balance on the tennis courts, changing them to, pickleball courts, what I had wrote down here for a note for myself is there was $120,000 balance that the city had to come up with. Is that in the fund?
Yes,
Okay, and where was that under?
it's in the capital reserve line item under park improvements. Park improvements is a combination of two items. It has a total allocation of 1.1 million. That's 800,000 for the design of cash and 300,000 for the full cost of the pickleball courts. And then in the revenue for that fund, it shows $180,000 in grants coming in from LGGP to go towards the pickleball.
What's our FTE for the golf course again? Sorry, I'm confused. What's our FTE for the golf course?
9.
Yeah, just under 8.7.
Hey, you guys talked briefly about, contingency funds, what's the reserve? It increased to 13% of budget, is that correct, or it decreased to 11%?
Increase to 13% across all funds.
So like lower fund wise because of.
So, yeah, last year the overall was 11%. This year the overall is 13%. We typically don't look at the overall, we look more on a fund level since we have different target balances to meet. Dave mentioned the 20% target for the general fund. Last year we had an allocation of almost exactly 3.5 million. This year it's 3,571,765, and that's the combination of operating contingency and unappropriated fund balance.
The dollar amount's gone up by about 71,000.
70,000.
Yeah.
What's our total overall?
Our total overall reserve is 18,474,343. I will note that just under $8 million of that amount is building funds, and those are heavily restricted and cannot be used. So anything as far as our general fund, capital reserve, and things that. And really maybe TRT, things that we have full discretion over, our reserve is just under 4.4 million. The other ones are pretty heavily restricted.
General fund typically has a minimum 5%, what they call a 5% prudent person reserve, through budget law on the general fund. You typically can basically never take it below 5% unless there's a declared emergency.
This is one where, you guys know I have a position that I like to continue to promote on this one, and you know, based on the information we get from Scott, it's amazing how quickly the city spends money. And I know that we are increasing the funds on a dollar basis, but when you look at some of the catastrophic things that can happen that gobble up money that reserves are for, I will always push for trying to be close to the 20%. It's like, look, I know we can't be there, and we've got a billion other things we're doing, but I'm happy being the only voice that yells about trying to push reserves up any way possible.
I'll join that voice. I'm a firm believer in saving up for a rainy day, because rainy days can really wipe things out fast.
I'm the only person who's recognizes Scott.
That new Scott.
Yeah. Only that, yeah.
$1 million more a mile for a road.
If only the state would give us a little bit more flexibility with those building dollars.
Hey.
Go back to sleep, Brandon.
So when people are thinking about questions, I want to go back to your point of, being limited to a 3% increase on our increase. So I went and did a little bit of homework, and if you look at the last increase, so inflation rate over the last 5 years was 4.18%. So based on, if the city's not growing, if the city does not have outright growth and we're just dependent on static funds, if you look at it over the past 5 years, we would be looking at a 1% per annum budget reduction. Is that correct?
If not more,
If not
because
more.
costs have gone, I mean, you look at
Well, you've got the labor on top, you've got
labor
the
and
multiplying
PERS
thing.
and
Yeah,
insurance.
At sort of your basic notion there, yeah, that the general CPI or general inflationary rates have certainly outpaced the 3%. And so, any cities, counties, special districts and so on, they're almost essentially required, if you don't have the growth that comes with the community, you're not going to be able to make up that delta.
Yeah. Nice things the state did to us a long time ago.
Unfunded mandates.
On the kind of same. A lot of things about reserves, we've talked a lot about where if the bond fails, we're going to continue to department. Where are we going to trend? Approximately $1.2 million.
Yeah, it'd be about 1.5, and this budget doesn't, we don't get into that. We anticipate that would be most likely a series of discussions at the council level to consider what options might be available to us at that time. Some of those things might include delays, some of those things might include cuts or reduction in services or temporary reductions in reserves, but there's several different options that could be considered.
Would it be a
Potentially.
I mean, that's certainly an option that we would look at is like I said, a delay. One of the ways in which we might be able to be creative in how we structure a full faith and credit bond, where you may have either an interest only payment or even deferred payment for the first year or two, as we anticipate other funds that might come on board the following fiscal year and so on.
Given that hypothetical May, hypothetically it passes, fails. Hypothetically it fails. Do we have any shots in the dark of what we're gonna pull from?
That's all hypothetical.
Yeah, I'd say we haven't, no, because like I said, if we get there, then we'll present to council what options might be available. We need to get Messero or whoever our bond counsel or financial advisor might be on that to be able to put together what options might be available to us in the types of funding. And then we would look at what projects we have available here that we might be willing to delay, replace, or like I said, look at our reserves. If we wanted to make a change there.
Thank you.
So we're coming up to 9 o'clock here shortly. I don't want to stop discussion in any way, shape, or form, but we're gonna come up to a time limit. And at some point in time, we're gonna have to discuss further, whether we think we can get to a motion on the proposed budget or whether we're going to delay for another meeting.
I'm ready to make a motion personally.
Last question was just here on the, in the notes, it says no funding included for other taxing districts. That $500 million, is that the request?
Yeah, and of course, open to discussion. That was another item that I really felt like I didn't get good direction at the last meeting, and so.
I was gonna bring that up next too.
I just said that, like, from the message I feel like you did make it to that. So,
If the committee feels otherwise, I just walked away feeling like I didn't have that.
I don't recall us making an appointment to get it in the budget.
I don't know if the council's in there, but did city staff have a conversation?
I'm happy to discuss. Yeah, we talked, and you sent you the video last March. We had an open discussion then and meetings prior to that. I certainly sat down with superintendent and mentioned as we talked through contributions to the hospital district, that there might be other opportunities for other districts, including the school district. We definitely did talk about $500,000 as a potential option that might be there, but there was no guarantee. And I said that many times, including in that public meeting in March. We said, it's got to be a budget appropriation. We've got to go through the process. And so it didn't make it into last year's budget. This budget, as we looked at the revenues here, it's not in your proposed budget again, because the revenue's not there for it. So, and we also didn't have direction as to, let's find 500,000, make sure that is funded and look at other options that were here. So that's why you don't have it in your proposed budget now.
Right.
So, my opinion is that we should be appropriating more money to all of the taxing districts to give them more. My thought on it is there are more and more people living in this area. And I know I brought it up to you before too. My concern is that the fire department does not have adequate equipment from what I've heard. And that meeting that all of the people from the various enterprise zones came and had testimony really impacted me, and that they're all looking for money also. And I know we've talked about it a little bit, but I think it just bears repeating that with the amount of money that is coming into the city, that a certain percentage is also shared with the taxing districts.
Right, which is why we're still doing meetings with the enterprise zones to clarify what they actually need.
I'm sorry, I don't understand.
I think she's saying that we're meeting with the districts. We did meet last spring and summer. We have not met since.
With the taxing district.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have any meetings booked in the future?
I don't have anything planned right now. So if I can talk on that just a little bit more. So I will come to council in May with first time presenting an annual report, since we now have more than a participant in the enterprise zone and more than one facility. Our second one came on board this current fiscal year. draft language. So the districts do receive some funds from the enterprise zone. They also receive some funds from the strategic investment program. But admittedly, it's not the same proportion that the cities and the counties get. But the current fiscal year, you know, it was 3.3, almost 3.4 million total. 1.05 went to the city, 1.01 went to the hospital district, 998,000 went to the county. The Hermiston School District, because that's who paid, where the funds were paid, got 180,000. That's PDX 130 out there on Wanapa Road. Those facilities are not in the Umatilla School District, so they don't receive those funds. The Fire Protection District got $77,188 and so on and so forth. I'll present this in May. That's just for that facility. So there are funds that come out, but yeah, they're not the same as they are that come out to the city and to the county. That's part of the reason we highlighted there, and kind of what Bruce touched on a little bit of particularly measures 5 and measure 50, and they affect not only the cities and the county, but the other districts. It is different for the school districts, and that's also part of the reason why it's not in the proposed budget here. Where we're looking at a property tax reduction of 300,000 this year. The school appropriation for their funds is going up by over $1 million. And so measure 5 and 50 guaranteed, particularly that schools are guaranteed to get their increases based upon their APM or their average student numbers. We don't get that, neither do the special districts. They don't get that. And to your point, the other districts, particularly the fire district, and I've met with Darla recently, and we talked about ways in which the city might be able to, at very high level, in which we might be able to help out with school district. Certainly those other districts that have those immediate impacts there, definitely, I mean, we agree. I think that there's impacts that are there. School districts, I think, are a totally different, a different animal. The rules of the way that the funds are appropriated at the state level are different for school districts than they are for any other taxing district in the state. So the other reason why it's not in your proposed budget there is we don't have clear direction from city council or from the county for that matter, which is our co-partner, which was part of my response to the email from last month, is that there is a co-partner here in the enterprise zone. The city, so far we seem to be the primary one that's being talked to for that. We're interested to see what the county has to say. So far they've said that they're not interested. We've said that we are interested to keep conversations going. And yes, we don't have any scheduled at the moment. There's only so much bandwidth right now. And so we look forward to trying to open those conversations back up this summer if we can get there. I need some additional clarification, but that's going to come from city council direction, which at the moment I don't have.
Yeah, that's a higher level discussion. That comes from the council. But I think we're all open-minded to that for sure.
There just seems to be, every time I bring this up, there just seems to be, I don't know, there's something in the air that I don't understand because I'm newer here, so I haven't been coming to all of these. There's upset, I guess, is probably just the easiest way to put it. There's upset in the air when it's talked about.
Oh, from a budget perspective, when I was looking at these, we put in the requests and then we look at where our reserves are at, and that's where we start cutting. And so I guess my counter question is if it's the desire to put an allocation in the budget, where does that come from? What is the committee's comfort level with reserves? What project would we not complete in order to do that? And what sort of funding are we looking at now? And that's without, and we're not talking a small dollar amount, so it would have to be a pretty substantial capital project. The two major ones that are being funded from the general fund this year are the Powerline Madison Road improvement, which is already in progress. The general fund has to support that project with $500,000 because the street fund can't sustain it. So that's the only way that that project gets complete. We have the design of Hash Park is the other major project that's being funded from the general fund. And we recently found out that there is a really good chance that we're going to lose the 3rd Street soccer field. So do we want to delay the design of Hash Park those seem to be pretty substantial, important projects, and those are the ones really that you could remove in order to, it's that or dipping into reserves would be, in my opinion, the only way to make a substantial financial impact. And we already saw that percentage decrease, although the amount went up by 70,000. So what is that comfort level with those reserves? I think would be the conversation that we would need to have.
Well, the elephant in the room is, I think everybody thinks you just cut out rock locks and you can get $500,000. The problem with that is it comes from a different pot. Okay, you have general fund, I'm sorry. So the elephant in the room is I think that the theory is that we cut rock the locks and we give $500,000 to school. But it's my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not the one with the degree, but it comes from a different fund. So you have.
Festival is located in the transient room tax,
Correct.
but the delta of funding is being transferred from the general fund, so it is the same money. It's the
Okay.
same pot.
Okay. That was the question. I'm sure that everybody's on the mind.
We're scheduled to.
All right.
We're okay.
No, we have 3 hours. don't
We have 3 hours. We
Which would be
started at
9:15.
6:15, 9:15.
We got 11 minutes.
Yep. And you still have one more business item to get through, which is
So
the
that'll take-
affirmation of taxes.
Right.
So.
It's up to you. It's up to you.
So I would, just in the expediency for this meeting, I'd, accept to extend the budget committee, meeting for 30 minutes.
I would like to motion that we extend it for 30 minutes. I second it.
Roll call, please.
Counselor Wheeler,
But will I be able to leave? I just realized I need to get going.
yes, ma'am.
Yeah,
Thank
we
you.
can-
Counselor McLean?
Aye.
Counselor Dufflock?
Aye.
Counselor McMillan?
Aye.
Committee Member Cotterall? Committee Member Barrera?
Aye.
Committee Member Simmons? Committee Member Cahill? Committee Member Pratt?
Aye.
Committee Member Osorio?
Aye.
Committee Member Chavez? Mayor Sipe?
Thank you.
So I got the follow-up email. And for me, like, I think where I lack the clarity, I guess where the conversation originally started, or it seems it started to the passing of the bond to where we are now, as far as, you know, as far as like the commitment of funds, right? Like, I think in any capital project, if the funds aren't there, you're not committing to projects. Is the way I was understanding that. And so to me, it was, I think for me, it was the lack of clarity there was commitment to those kinds of improvements without funds, without an actual check, without an actual agreement with a contract or something from the council saying they voted on May 12th, action was taken. There was an executive, or I don't know, something that said, we're cutting you the check in 30 days time, something, right?
Talking about
The $500,000 commitment, right? So to me, like, so that, I guess I'm lacking the clarity there as far as something, it seems like something was said in passing or in a conversation. But I think for me, you know, I work at a school district, right? We manage budgets, all sorts of budgets. The only money that I know of is the money that's in the account, right? And from the email thread I got, it seemed like, man, this is a safety concern. This is a structural concern. This is almost an operation concern. Like we're in the weeds here as far as, not even in the weeds, I'm sorry. We're like, this is dire. We can't operate without this money. And I thought we voted on passing a bond to fund those projects.
Correct.
And so for me, it was like, when I voted, it was a vote on yes or no to those projects with the money that the taxpayers were committed to. So for me, like, I like that clarity of where was there a $500,000 deficit that led us to this being dire? To, I mean, I think I saw somewhere it said safety concerns for kids coming to school, which are my children, right? The children of the people in my community. And so I don't know if you can provide us that clarity of like where, you might not know this, I don't know who knows this, maybe this is something that needs to, we can get answered later, but like, how did we get here? Because you're right, there's this sense of, if we don't get it, we're gonna be in a bad situation if we don't get this money.
Well, it feels
Go
not,
ahead.
what I'm sensing is it's a school district against the city council.
Yeah.
Or a school district against the city. That's that upset that I'm hearing. And I can hear it in people's voices.
Yeah.
Just, sorry, Ashley, you're not here, but just in the way Ashley responded to what I said, I can hear that upset and I don't know why there's that upset.
And Umatilla in a very unique position. Look at the budget. We went from, 30 something to 100 and something, right? 180, 170. If we were not in that position, would this situation still exist? That we proceeded to do these capital improvements with the contingency that we were expecting that money? Like, would that have happened if the city wasn't getting the revenues that it was getting? And I think if I understood it correctly, the enterprise zone is, this percentage is going here. It is guaranteed. Our schools are receiving that money from the enterprise zone. The fire department is receiving this money from the enterprise zone, right? So,
I don't think so.
or whatever the allocations are. There's allocation, whatever those are.
That's not true.
So
That's
there
not
is
true.
some allocation in the student success fee, there are different allocations that go to the various taxing districts, but that's separate. To be clear, that's separate from the $500,000.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, right?
And so the other piece to me is, we have partners that are in place, i.e. The county, they receive half our funds as well. So are they being approached about, is the school district going to them? Is the taxing districts going to them? That's the other part of it. Is she still here?
Yeah. Can she hear us?
Counselor Wheeler.
Yes. I made a comment via the text. Since I know it's a little difficult to hear and I have to speak up a little louder. So I put that there just to make sure it's clear.
renovations is the current high school shop, which is being converted to elective classes and spaces for middle school. The building was first constructed in the 50s and added into the 90s. So we're not talking about couches and equipment. We're talking about those buildings. That's what the request was for.
Yeah, so I think it's fair. I think it's a question for the school district. I think that's, if you have more questions, then I think you should submit
Yeah,
that to
and
them.
I guess for clarification, as my understanding as well is that the bond oversold and that elective projects were completed or being able to be completed with the bond proceeds. And so if the bond sold enough for the projects and electives, that's.
I think
Comes down to comments made by individuals from the city that may have had like more of a promise or a commitment. I wasn't in on those meetings. I don't know what that was like. I'm not going to speak to that regard, but I think that's where they're coming from. So if those were things that were said offhand, out of place, long comments, but exactly what Darren was saying is that Dave has no authority to give $500,000 and it needs to go through the budget process, and Darren hit the nail on the head on that. I can't disagree with that.
Yeah, I was clear in the public meeting in March of last year. It's got to go through a budget process. That's the quote. I sent you the email, I gave you the time and minute where it was stated. Like I said, we've had the conversations about being interested, about finding ways in which we might be able to help the districts. We absolutely talked about 500,000 as a possible option to the school district, but I've been clear all along the way that it's got to go through this process. It's got to go through a budget process. It's got to be approved by the council. And the school district is sophisticated experts. They understand the public budgeting process. So for me, I'm very confused. Kind of where you are is without a passed resolution, without a passed budget that includes it, I don't know where the lost in translation occurred. I'm puzzled by that.
At the end of the day, I don't think it really, that's their cross to bear. It's not ours. We're just looking at, where we're at with the $500,000. That's it. And it doesn't look like we have space in our budget for that at this point. Now, if there's some allocation as things come offline that we can give more to the taxing districts and so forth, so on. Yeah, I'm definitely into that. I would support that 100%, especially those districts, i.e. the fire district, that calls for services bigger. They have more need for staff. We need a ladder truck really bad. Now that we got things that are going to need a ladder truck, there's a need there, 1000%. I think we need to focus in on those and allocate towards those, which ultimately I hate to say it, because everybody always thinks that I'm looking for my angle. But at the end of the day, it's going to help me because it's going to lower my insurance rate just with everybody else. The time of response. So it's all part of it, right?
Yeah, I push back a little bit in the sense that, our budget has more than tripled, and say that if this was a student safety concern, that we would have a responsibility, right? So that's the only thing I'd say on that. The other thing I want to say is, to our community in general, right? We have a responsibility to support the school district, right? We're talking about the Monroe project on South Hill. That hits home for me because I live on the hill. I see the kids that walk to school, my kids will walk to school. And so just thinking about that. And then also just to add, I feel like I have heard more about this specific line item than any other. That communication that I received was timely. Was the day the meeting ended. I got communication. I didn't respond because I don't know all the different, I don't want to break any rules. I also got a follow-up communication from you. And so I had the same kind of sense on the topic of there's more to this. There's a sense of urgency here that is saying, we hope you guys make the right decision. And I felt that on my shoulders, right? And so for me, it's like, I wanted the clarity to know, one, I don't want to go home and wait on this for the next 365 days and say, man, we said no to this money and our kids are that much less safe, right? Or we said no to this money and our kids have less opportunities to access their education, right? And so for me, it was like, that's where I was coming at was, what is the sense of urgency in the situation here? Are we talking about safety to like keeping our kids safe in the sense of keeping people out? Or are we talking comfort items, or are we talking wish lists, right? And so that's kind of and that's how I want to make my decision, is based on that.
I think that's a question for Heidi, you know, and unfortunately she's in Bend right now. I do know where she's at. I've got a little tracker on my phone. I know where she's at, but yeah, exactly. I have your speeding mom. But that's important to note that I think it's very, very important that we do fully understand the gravitas of the situation that we're currently in. If it is about student safety and if it is one of those situations, then I think we need to have a further conversation about it. And I think it's yeah, exactly. And that's a great question.
After you change that, you can make a motion to increase that line item and decrease something else, whether it's another expense or if it's unappropriated fund balance or whatever that looks like. I need a motion specifically on how to amend the budget.
If the request is based on the request that, um, Dave just read, right? If it's talking about capital improvements, if it's talking about, I think you mentioned, we oversold the bond. And so we actually were able to complete some of those projects, or if that's what's in if the thing that I got, and if I read that and it was like, not talking about double entry. We're not talking about a school resource officer, maybe in that case or something, but, so you know how we have the main door, they enter, there's a window and with a buzzer system before you can enter through the double door. Yeah. That's a good question because other people might not know that. Yeah. And so if it was something like, okay, I think that for me would change the scope of the situation as far as the urgency, right?
The letter that Dave was reading does say it's for the old shop, so it's not for the new school and it's not for the new shop, the new building by the school, it's for the old shop. And so that would be, if it's about safety, it would be to update that entry maybe in there, or safety for the students, which I also don't know because I also, we haven't been in those meetings, like, you don't know, like, we don't know. I'm just going by what Dave just read. But when all those people came and gave public input and everybody on city council was like, oh, I'm going to look into this, I'm going to educate myself on this, we're going to schedule those meetings, we're going to do this. But then Dave's like, oh, we met with them last spring or last summer and I don't have anything looking forward to meeting with any of them. It seems like they can't, all these people came here, gave public input, but nobody is following up with any of them.
But I would take that as a school leader and say, man, I can't count on that. I can't plan 8 months down the road, 12 months down the road and assume that I'm going to get that. If anything, I'm going to be like, man, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. And so I'm going to have to budget my budget differently so that I'm not, putting all my eggs in the basket on someone else's budget. Yeah. Yeah. Because I know like the shop was remodeled not too long ago, right? When we did like the Think Big Space up at the high school. And that was different.
I'll say, and one comment in the letter, since we're talking about it specifically, that's what it's for. And they just said we would appreciate the funding commitment from the city, even if it needs to stretch over multiple budget cycles, something to consider.
Yeah, she'll get it next. I think it just lends itself to the discussion that we just need to have more transparency in this process, especially when, we keep hearing from the taxing districts over and over again. So getting some of that. And then because I kind of missed it earlier, I should have caught it. But so if the city council decided to shift the funding burden for Rock the Locks to a different area, did we say that there's potential that could go to some of the taxing districts?
Potentially it could, but we haven't had any discussions on where that funding would go.
No, I just meant
Potentially, yes.
Okay. Okay.
So what I'm hearing in all of this, and it feels like you guys know a lot more of the details of it than I do, but that's okay. To me, I'm hearing two different issues. One is the 500,000 that the school district, that the email was about, that the school district was expecting. The other thing I hear about is all of the taxing districts
asking for money. So there's two different issues. Is that something that we want to tackle with this budget?
I don't think that this is the forum for that discussion. That goes to the city council and the corporation of the, sorry. Am I wrong with that?
So the policy decision goes to council, but even if council made a policy and wanted to distribute funds, if there weren't funds budgeted, the only way to do that after the fact would be through a budget amendment. But I mean, a budget amendment is possible.
So we would have to say tonight, if there's no Rock the Locks moving forward, that money, we would want it to be, for the districts, the special districts. Because, I just don't want us to leave here not understanding what you mean when you say, I didn't have clear guidance on this. Like, do you need us to give you guidance?
I think that city council, because it's not a decision that would be made tonight, it would be a budget amendment. I think that decision would be up to city council on when they make their budget amendment.
Yeah, I think I would feel better doing that, and then leaving it to the council gives you guys enough time to have those conversations, ask those questions, right? And then again, put it at the hands of the community. If the community decides they don't want Rock the Locks and that money is to be reallocated through some amendment, and the council takes that decision, I'll leave it to the council. What are your thoughts?
I can align with that. Can it be that the budget committee gives a strong recommendation that the council would use that money for the taxing districts? Is that something we can do?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I was gonna say from budget committee, you guys can make motions and pass whatever recommendations or urgings that you want the council to consider. You certainly can do that, yes.
Case that Rock the Locks is not something that the city continues. That they consider the taxing districts to use the fund, is saying that they have to consider it. Or saying you should. Yeah, saying, yeah, it's just a recommendation. Yeah, just a recommendation.
So the only thing I would caution, and of course you guys can make recommendations. I worry about creating a taxing district versus Rock the Locks perception if these two are tied together. I think that is a potential for a lot of conflict moving forward. I'm just gonna. I don't.
So can I say, hey, as somebody on the budget committee, I think a good allocation of funds in the event that the money isn't used for Rocks the Locks is that we consider making the one-time donation to the school district for $500,000. Just like, I just want to say that publicly. Yeah, and so is the voters' decision when we vote on the council. So.
Is this what it was meant by volatile?
Sorry.
No. It was- stop.
Yeah.
I think that everybody has to understand that taxing districts get a piece of the puzzle, okay? But again, I'm gonna reiterate that those enterprise zone funds are also going to your partner, which is the county. Okay, it's their obligation, I believe, if I was on those taxing districts, that I would be talking to those people as well. I'm not just going to condemn, harass, or continually badger the city for their money. When in reality, we only have half that source. So with that in mind, people need to realize that that money is coming only, we're only getting half of that. Half of that's going to the county as well. Where do they stand? And why aren't those taxing districts going to those And if they are, that's fine. That's on them. I can.
And how do we know if they're not?
I can only speak from right here.
Yeah, I know.
All I know is that if you come to me
Mhm.
and we evaluate the need and we give that, that's perfectly fine.
Yeah. And so my perspective is how do we know that they're not badgering them just as hard? I think I mean,
I have no idea. I can only go
Right.
by what I'm hearing.
Exactly.
And they're not.
okay, well,
They're not sitting at every council, at every commission meeting. They're not at every meeting down there. I have not seen them routinely down there, but I routinely see them here. So, and I see them in the public all the time,
mhm.
talking, knocking on doors, which is fine. But at the end of the day, I mean, the reality is that there's other people.
I'm gonna make a motion to approve the remainder of the budget as is.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Roll call, please. Aye.
Aye. Commissioner Cottrell. Committee member Cottrell. Committee member Barrera.
Aye.
Committee member Simmons. Committee member Cahill. Committee member Pratt. Aye. Committee member Osorio.
Aye.
Committee member Chavez. Mayor Syke.
The ayes have it. Budget is approved. On to item 9.3, affirmation of taxes. I would entertain a motion to affirm the tax rate for the city of Umatilla at $2.9191 per thousand of taxable value.
Chairman, I would. 9.3, a motion to affirm the tax rate for the city of Umatilla at $2.9191 per $1,000 of taxable value.
I second that.
Roll call, please. Aye.
Counselor McMillan.
Aye.
Committee member Cottrell. Committee member Barrera.
Aye.
Committee member Simmons. Committee member Cahill.
Aye.
Committee member Pratt. Aye. Committee member Osorio.
Aye.
Committee member Chavez. Mayor Syke.
Well, I'm going to deviate just for half a second. Thank you, everybody, for putting up with me not having a script put together and being as put together as I have been in the past for running this meeting. I will do better next year. Yeah, yeah, I wasn't expecting this, but thank you for the vote of confidence. Thank you all for your time and effort. Clearly, we have a really engaged budget committee, and people aren't just here. They are involved. They're asking questions. It's wonderful to see.
And I also think that y'all have opinions. That's what makes it wonderful, okay? It doesn't mean that I don't respect anybody in this room. I 100% have the utmost respect for everybody volunteering on time, being a part of this community, 100%. So just remember that, when you can disagree, it's perfectly fine.
Thank you for those that stuck online. That's a tough way to do it. Also, so I would take a motion to adjourn. I have a motion. Do I have a second? Roll call, please. Aye.
Aye.
Committee member Cottrell. Committee member Barrera.
Aye.
Committee member Simmons. Committee member Cahill. Committee member Pratt. Committee member Osorio. Committee member Chavez. Mayor Syke.
Meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.
Yes, please leave your notes.